Thanks for being here after 45 days of not having a press conference with Coach Day. We'll open up today's proceedings with Stephen Means, Cleveland.com, and we got a lot of people here, so I'm going to keep the questions to one apiece, at least initially. Stephen?
Who's on first? Brian, just can you take us through the process of how you ended up identifying Matt Patricia as the guy who would be your defensive coordinator? Was that someone maybe you thought about early on, or did maybe things developed?
No, you can tell that we were very thorough in how we went about the process. It took some time. One of the things that, people ask me all the time, like, what are the biggest learning lessons every year that you learn as a head coach? And one of them is to make sure that, you're thorough in the, your hiring process, that you bring in, the right fit. And I felt like Matt was that guy for a lot of reasons. I think the first one is his experience, coaching 19 years in the NFL. He's coached in 6 Super Bowls, has 3 Super Bowl rings. It was important. So the experience speaks for itself. I think, he's one of the best, minds in the game, but also, pairing him with Tim Walton as a co-coordinator, pairing him with Larry Johnson, Matt Guerrieri, James Laurinaitis. I mean, that was important to have continuity. When you interview certain coordinators, they have an idea of what they want to do. They want to come in and run their style of defense. They want to, bring in their own guys. So that was the first thing. The second thing, and so part of that was having somebody that was willing to work with the guys that were in the room. That was very important. And I just want to make sure that I, really praise the guys in that room. And, having Tim Walton as a co-coordinator there is a huge part of our defense. And he was this year, and so was Matt, and so was Larry and all those guys. But, I think Matt and Tim working together as the coordinators is going to be critical. I think that we need to continually look at how we have to evolve with our defense. And Matt brings a different approach to the game in terms of he's run different styles of fronts in the past. He's been multiple in what he's done. And I think when you look at his defenses, they've always utilized their players. And I think we've talked about that a lot, especially on offense. How do we put our players in best position to be successful? I also, studied how Nick Saban went on his run and he brought in different offensive coordinators. You think about that run. It was Lane Kiffin, it was Sarkisian, it was Daboll. It was Mike Loxley, it was Bill O'Brien, a lot of different coaches, but they kept a lot of the defense intact, and we want to make sure that our identity of what we do on defense stays intact as we have movement on our staff. So, all those things led me down this road of Matt, who even in a short period of time, has already worked hard on building relationships with the staff, with the players, and his experience is going to have credibility the minute he walks in that room of the guys that he's coached, the teams, and his experience on the field. And now that we're playing in a longer season, understanding, how that goes and playing in the playoffs, I think all those were reasons that we ended up with Matt.
Over to the right, Don Sperry, WBNS.
Coach, as you look at what you have to get done this spring, what are maybe the top 3 things you need to get done that you're most concerned about this spring?
Well, I feel like we just got done with the season, which is because we did. And we finished on January 20th. We had that week there to celebrate, and then we were kind of right back into it. And we had our first mat drill, about 10 days ago, had a second one today. We're going to go on spring break. We're starting a week later than we normally would. We're also going to do spring practice in 4 weeks as opposed to 5 weeks. So I think as you look at our team, there's a group of guys that have played a lot of football. And those guys who have played a lot of football coming off of last year are, especially in the first half of spring and maybe 3/4 of the spring, are going to be, treated a little bit differently than some of the other guys. That's kind of one group. The next group are the guys that have played a lot of football but are now in a different role that nearly need to step up and become starters. And then you have guys that just got here that need a ton of football. So, this is going to be a different style of spring. We're still looking at the format of the spring game / showcase, but we're going to try to play as much football as we can that day. But we're also going to be smart because we know with 16 games, what can happen is, you can play a 16-game season. If you really just jump right in and have a normal spring practice, then you come back and play another, 16-game season. That's a lot of football in 1 year, and we have to be smart on that. So, that's kind of our approach to it. I think when you look at our biggest concerns, it's replacing the guys that walked out the door. We can go through each position group if we want, and I'm willing to do that. But obviously, that's the biggest key is replacing those guys. And obviously, the guys who are returning, they're in a different situation. But we certainly have holes that we need to fill.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, you mentioned the spring showcase. I mean, around the country, a lot of things are looking different for teams in spring football. When you evaluate what you're doing, how much has that changed in the past just based on how long the season is?
Yeah.
Trying to keep that up.
Yeah, that's it. And, 15 opportunities. And in the past, those were all padded practices, very physical. That will not be the case for sure this spring. We will use some helmeted practices, almost like OTA styles, to take some of those. There'll be more teaching opportunities to be smart there. Another thing is, as we look ahead, at the 105 on the roster, that's a lot different than when you're at 120 plus. So, I mean, the health of the team is going to be even more important. So we got to be smart with that. But yeah, we the first time we play a game this year with this team is going to be against Texas at home. So to get some of these young players in the stadium with a good crowd will still be important. So it isn't just going to be, a bunch of 7-on-7 and guys running around doing one-on-ones and individual drills. I mean, we're going to try to do the best we can to simulate game opportunities for our players, but there'll also be some players that will hold out in that game.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, when you were going through the process of hiring an offensive line coach, how did you land on Tyler Bowen and with his, lack of coaching the offensive line the last few years, how did you kind of go through that process and land on him as a guy that you wanted?
Well, I think the first thing was that, talk to Brian and, Brian will be a first-time play caller for us and wanted to make sure that we had somebody in the room in the run game that had coordinator experience, and I think Tyler, when you look at, his past and his background, it's pretty diverse in terms of, he's coached the O-line, he's coached the tight ends. He's obviously been a part of the run game coordinator. And that's anytime you're in that, I mean, you're coaching the O-line because there's more offensive linemen on the field than any other position. And so he played the position. He's a very, very good coach. He understands it. Even in a short period of time, you can ask our offensive lineman, he's on it. And then we have a really good support staff behind him that we hired that I think are excellent. And they've got a lot of energy. I mean, you can feel them when they come in the building, the coaches. And so, we'll work through the spring and kind of see and evaluate how that goes. But I think that he's going to work tremendous with Brian, even in a short period of time. They see things the same way. And I think that, for a first-time play caller, having that presence in there of somebody that sees it was important in the hire. But to your point, like the development of the O-line that's his job. Got to get that done. Got to get the run game organized. But, he's got some help there as well. Some guys that I feel strong about. And, we'll, again, evaluate it coming out of the spring. But in a short period of time, I've been impressed so far with the approach and even some of the work that we've done.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
You talk about these guys that have played a lot of football, so maybe they don't get as many reps. But when you have a lot of staff turnover, especially with Matt Patricia coming in, like how do you balance giving those guys the rest they need with the long season, but also these guys to be on the field getting reps, hearing new voices and all this terminology and things like that?
Yeah, I think that's where we're all. Usually you have, like we've talked about this a lot in here, you have a benchmark, you go back and you check your notes from, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. How do you check your notes on this? We just got done with the season, 16 games. Now we're going into the spring. So we have to be smart on that. We have a plan of making sure that those guys, are able to rest as well. But when you look at some of the younger guys who were on the scout team, they are in a much, much different situation than Sonny Styles, than IGB, than Carson Hinsman. You can start going through the list. So we have to, I think, initially treat them differently, but quickly we have to get them, all on the same page, that we're all on the same page. And so as spring goes on, we'll do that. But early on, we'll be really smart, especially coming off of spring break.
Over to the right, Kellyanne Stitz, WSYX.
Ryan, you mentioned the spring showcase looking a little bit different this year, and you guys are still hashing out those details. But are you able to share what that might look like?
Not yet. Yeah, I mean, there will certainly be opportunities to scrimmage, and it'll look like a game. But Because of some of the guys that we mentioned, we still want them out there doing some things. So that will probably be in some drill work and some 7-on-7 work, and be good to get everybody out there so that the fans can see them. But the most important thing is getting the young guys game reps with hopefully a good crowd out there. So that, because we know the next time again will be against Texas. So we're also going to have to take a hard look at the health of our team as we get into the end of April. So we have to be able to adjust and be flexible with it. But again, that's the goal, was to get these guys as many reps as we can in the stadium.
Noah Weisskopf, the Lantern.
Ryan, now that you had that week after the national championship to sort of reflect and sit back, what do you think the biggest thing is that you learned about yourself during that entire playoff run?
Just to trust the process. Yeah. And just keep pushing and sometimes, and we all know this, it's easy to say, it's a little bit different to do, is you just, again, trust the process and make the adjustments and keep pushing forward. We always say, ignore the noise, whether it's good or bad, because criticism and praise are all the same. You just have to, focus on what you're focused on, and all the work and decisions that are made during the beginning of the season. We have to adjust and tweak them, but at the same time, we also have to believe in what we believe in our philosophy. And I think it's also, making sure that you're recruiting the right people, that, when you do have a tough moment, everyone's able to stick together and not go in different directions and fray. I think those are all learning lessons.
Dave Biddle, 24/7.
Ryan, as you enter spring ball, is there a position group or groups that you're concerned about depth-wise? And might you guys add more from the portal? I know you've already done a good job in the portal, but
one of the things for us that was tricky was, the portal was open before our season, and open and closed before our season was over. And that's something that we got to take a hard look at with rules. And people will say, well, you guys just won the national championship. What are you complaining about? Well, it matters for this year's team. And so that was a major challenge for us. Because as you can imagine, if you are trying to add somebody in the portal, but you're still trying to finish your season out, how that can affect your current roster. So, and then the second part of that is we get done with the season, and, Notre Dame and Ohio State are the only two teams with guys in the portal for that 5-day window, and everybody else is closed, and it's open season on our players for 5 days. Like, we got to take a hard look at this to figure out what's right, and whether there's just one window in the spring portal once all that is flushed out. To me, it's either that or you move back to games. But again, we can talk about that at another date. So, we will obviously look in the portal based on how things come out of the spring. We'll look at that because, we have to fill out our roster too. There's some positions that we're not at capacity right now. So depth, let's see, on defense, I would say right now, D-line is probably of the biggest concern, just in terms of replacing those 4 guys. And then also, losing Hero. So that's five guys right there that we have to replace. I think that we have some good guys and good options there, but that'll be a focus. On offense, O-line is always something that we need to take a look at and see how some of those new guys fit in and how it all comes together. And then losing Quinshawn and Trey at running back, James, and now we have CJ and some of the younger guys that, now they have to carry the water. So that's going to be, big. And obviously the quarterback would be the big, the big focus. So I think when you look at it on offense, it's really just, replacing Travion and Quinshawn, and then how the offensive line comes together. And then again, on defense, it's, losing those 5 guys, and seeing who's going to step up in those areas. Yep. No, sir.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Follow up on Matt Patricia. Obviously, you mentioned he's done a lot of different things schematically in his time. What makes you confident that what he did, in the NFL will translate to the collegiate level?
I think a lot of things that are going on, there's a trickle up and a trickle down effect right now, and you're seeing a lot of that happening. You're seeing a lot of guys transition, I think now more than in the past. You guys, probably focus on a little bit more than me, but, of what's going on in the NFL and what's going on in college, you're seeing a lot of carryover there. And I think with the playoff system in place, you're seeing that. You're seeing the coach to player communication. You're seeing huddling more. The hash marks are different, and there's certain rules that are different, but there's a lot of similarities now. So I think it's going to carry over well. You see quarterbacks who run and who are mobile in the NFL nowadays. So there's a lot more simulators now than in the past. And, being in the league for just a couple of years, the transition isn't as crazy as maybe it had been in the past.
Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, with your offensive staff being pretty young, I mean, you're almost 10 years older than everybody on the staff except for Coach Lackland, I think. How did that decision when Chip left, did that impact your decision with the defensive coordinator hire? Was there a thought that maybe you needed to go get somebody who was more of the head coach of the defense style based on the fact that you may have to spend more time with the offense than you did last year?
Yes, I think that you need to have balance when you're looking at your entire staff, and you try to do that the best you can. I believe very strongly that Brian's going to do a great job as an offense coordinator. I think he's really grown in a lot of areas. I give him a lot of credit for, he was named coordinator a couple of years ago. I still called the plays. Then we brought in Chip and his attitude of I'm just going to learn from Chip in a big way. And then some of the work that he did, Keenan did, and Billy did down the stretch in some of the pass game. And I think he's got, a really good handle now on protections and even in the run game. He's ready to call it now, but still going to be involved, still going to, just like I was last year, still going to kind of make sure that, we're all on the same page. Having Tyler there was important. But I think to your point, I'm still going to be involved with the offense, but I'm able to kind of bounce into the defense. But the more times that we have guys who are experienced and veteran, on that side of the ball, if I'm going to stay on offense, it certainly helps. And I think, taking the play calling away last year was really important. I want to continue to do that and surround myself with guys who, we can hire to do jobs, and I'm able to take a step back and take a little bit of a different role. I think it helped this season, and I'd like to, do that even more as we move forward.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, more on Matt. He clearly has credibility with his NFL, but I'm just curious in your discussions with him, interviews or whatever, why he decided to come back or come to college. He's not really been in college, Syracuse a little bit, but how much of that was not a concern, but a discussion point? I mean, you've got recruiting, you've got a whole different culture. How did that play out, and what did he say that can kind of convince you that he really wants to be in the college game?
I think you guys will get around Matt. You'll see his personality. You'll see the way he is. You'll just see, what type of family man he is, type of dad he is, type of husband he is. He did coach at Syracuse. He and Tim worked together there. But I grew up in New England, and I obviously saw the run that they went on there. And when you go on a run the way that they went on, you stay at a place for a long time. And, I don't know if that was, something that maybe even early on he thought he was going to be in the NFL for as long as he did. But when you're around a great organization that goes on the run that they went on, you end up at a place for a long period of time. And then, he's there for a while and then has an opportunity to become a head coach. Well, now, it's almost like a different mindset. It's maybe a little bit of a different chapter for him. Doesn't mean I'm sure he'll have an opportunity to go back to the NFL, but, I think it's Ohio State. I think he understands the culture. We spent a lot of time talking, and I think he sees the opportunity here and he's excited about it. And I think it's a new chapter that he can absolutely come in here and make a difference. And I think that's what he wants to do. And I don't think the recruiting part is going to be very difficult at all. And you'll see it when you get around him.
Joe Nugent, WCMH.
Naturally, there'll be a new starting quarterback this year as you start that process to figure out who that'll be. Where are you with that? How much information do you feel like you have on the guys that are in the mix?
They're young, and they're going to have to compete. And we need a quarterback to be tough. We need him to be a leader. I've said this before. They've had a great opportunity to watch Will, even Tavian, because he was a big part of, being around these guys last spring. I don't think he missed a spring practice. He would come during the season for all the games. He was with us for the last 2 weeks or the last two games. He was able to see what that looked like. Lincoln was with him every day. Julian was with him every day. So that's the standard of what the leadership should look like. Now they got to go do it. And, being the quarterback around here, you start listing the guys who have been here most recently and in the history of Ohio State football. You're in, you're some of the best names who've ever played the game. But the biggest thing they have to do is they got to lead and they got to be tough. So long way to go on it. Don't have any evaluation to go with right now, but it's going to be a big spring for those guys.
Tony German, Buckeye Huddle.
How do you see the quarterback reps going? Is it going to be like a 40, 40, 20, or like how are you expecting to break that down?
Early on, we're going to try to roll. We're going to try to go 3 groups so those guys get equal amount of reps. We'll split up who goes where. And even last year with Will, I mean, we did that. Guys were getting reps with the 1s, guys were getting reps with the 2s, the 3s. The times where Will was out there with the 3s early on and just rolling. Because if you put one guy with the 1s and 2s, sometimes it can look a little different because of the younger guys, older guys. So we're going to roll them and we're going to try to get the best evaluation we can. We'll evaluate everything. But specifically early on in the spring, we want to roll those guys the best we can because the number one goal of spring is to get individual players better. So, we can get scheme in and all that, but fundamentally, technically, we've got to get better as football players. Then once we get into the summer, we start putting the scheme together and we start coming with the chemistry of the team.
Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Brian, what are your expectations for Tyler Bowen as a recruiter and in your hiring process? How big of that was those conversations?
Big. And you guys can probably already see he's making an impact. He's getting guys here. He works hard at it. He makes connections. He builds relationships. He can evaluate at a high level. And I think with some of the guys that we have, on the offensive staff together, you're starting to see group recruiting there. And so, again, we're Ohio State. We should have the best players in the country, and he understands that. And again, this is another guy, the more you get around him, you'll see his personality just jumps out at you. And the guys love being around him. So, we'll see how the spring goes, but he's off to a good start.
Matt Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Brian, you mentioned Brian Hartline being ready to take over play calling. What have you seen in the last 2 years? Why do you feel so confident?
I think the first thing is his work ethic. He's worked his tail off, and when you evaluate, coaches, you got to work at it. You got to be one of the first guys in the building. You got to be one of the last guys to leave. I mean, you got to grind on it. I think he's made the transition from being a player to a coach very well in a quick period of time. His recruiting speaks for itself, but to me, the work ethic has been excellent. The players relate to him. He has credibility. He's got confidence, but he's grown as a coach. He's handled situations well. He understands. When we're on the headset, I think that's one of the things too that people don't realize. Like, yeah, the play caller is the play caller, but like in between series, man, we need to get to this. We need to get to this. It's third down. We're going to get to this. He's been on the headset. I mean, he's there saying, we got to get to this. We got to do this, like sees things, makes adjustments in game. But it's going to be fun to watch him, manage a group of people now, because that's a big difference. You got all the coaches in there, and now you're the guy who's got the clicker. You got to make the adjustments. You got to challenge those coaches. You got to make the tough decisions on personnel and where we're going schematically. And, I'm still going to be there, but I've really tried to, let him go and run with this thing. And so I'm excited to see, when you look at Brian, when he's put his mind to something, he's got it done. And I believe he's going to get this one done too.
Austin Ward, podcast.
It felt like Billy was a no-brainer promotion for you. What made that so easy?
He really, I say this to a lot of the coaches, when you walk in the building, it's your job to bring value. And I think sometimes some coaches wait to do things. Billy jumped on it right away. He saw this as an opportunity and he took it and ran because of the opportunity that these coaches have now to coach in the field, which they didn't have in the past, spend one-on-one time in meetings. He took that and ran, and with Chip being the offensive coordinator, he quickly, became the quarterback coach really last year. And, the good thing for Billy is he was here before, so he knows how we want to coach things. He knows how we teach things. He understands the progressions. He sees it the way that we see it. So him walking in the building, that was he was a step ahead that way. He's very smart. He works really, really hard at it. He's got a really bright future in the game, and I think the guys in the room know him, and so it was easy. And for me, it was good because we see things the same way. And I believe that, I can walk out of the room and what we want to get taught is going to get done. Now, there'll be, another great evaluation this spring, but I saw it last year. I saw the work he did, and he's very, very talented.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, with the makeup of the offensive staff being as young as it is, there have been past years we've had somebody like Chip last year, Kevin Wilson. Just wondering what kind of impact you think having a much younger staff has.
I think it comes down to experience. And now when you start looking at where, Brian's now been here for a while, and you look at, Tyler's coached a lot of football, and Locke and even Keenan now is getting a little bit older. these guys now have more experience than they did in the past. And again, I'm still going to be there, but I think you ultimately evaluate it based on what you see. And these guys just won a national championship here, and a lot of coaches haven't done that, so they've seen it, they know it, and so I think that it comes down to your worth. It comes down to what you've done, and I got a chance to see it on a day-to-day basis, and I think these guys are excellent.
Doug Maurice, Kings of the North.
Ryan, in hiring Matt Patricia, he had a sexual assault indictment in his past that did not go to trial and was later dismissed. What was the discussion with Matt around that, and what kind of vetting process did Ohio State go through?
Yeah. So, as you know, when we make these decisions, we spend a lot of time, in the interviewing process and getting to know people, and we always take everything into consideration. And that situation in particular, asked a lot of questions, vetted it. Ross Bjork was part of those conversations, and and feel really good about the hire. And our program, as is got great values and standards of how we handle ourselves, which you get to see on a day-to-day basis, and that's not going to change.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, I know you are not going to name any kind of front runner for the quarterback job, but people have raved about the way Julian throws the ball. Seems to have all that ability. It seems to be kind of a low-key guy. How much do you want to see the fire in him? And that was one of Will's biggest qualities. Is that almost more the bigger challenge for him than the football stuff?
I think all three of them, it's that way for sure. Yeah, I mean that being a leader and showing that toughness and showing that fire and showing that grit is, Will did a great job of that. So we're coming off the heels of that. So again, these guys got a chance to see that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that's the biggest challenge, and Mick does a great job of really fostering that behavior. And forcing those guys in a leadership role, get them in front of the team and speak. You got to get going, and that takes reps. So the first few times it might be a little clunky, it may not be very good, but the more you do it, the more confidence you have, and the more you get to find your voice, and that'll be important for the quarterback, as here.
We got time. Two more questions. Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Right, when you have a coordinator like Matt, who has a lot of success on the same side of the ball as the head coach, like with Bill Belichick. How do you evaluate that and try to discern that coordinator's impact as opposed to just being in a very good situation and succeeding?
Yeah, and with Doug's quite the amount of time we spend vetting all those types of things to find out exactly what's going on and the history behind it all is you call the guys that he worked with, and I think that's a great question, and that was honestly one of my questions. What did it look like? And so, you ask guys who were actually in the building, Nate Ebner is one of them, you ask coaches that he coached with. I won't get into the names of the people you call, but you gotta make a lot of calls to find out, about people. And what you found out was, he was running the defense. Now, certainly coach had a big hand in that. And, but as time went on there, it was his show, and there was certainly a lot of collaboration there, but he's very, very intelligent, really knows defensive football, and the guys who played for him, really felt like they were getting better because of the way that he taught football fundamentally. And I think even our guys in the building now, and in a short period of time, it's making a lot of sense to how he teaches the game. So all those things were part of the evaluation and making a decision.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros.
Coach, a year ago, all the talk was national championship with everything you had in place. This year's different. Is that a discussion still? Is that too much pressure on this group? How do you handle expectations with this team? And as you often say, you're not allowed to lose here.
Yeah. No, it doesn't change. Our expectations don't change. But I think whether it was last year, the year before, this year, none of that stuff's ever going to change. And so, we're going to go. But I do think coming off of last year, you get a chance to learn about your team. You get a chance to grow with your team. But yeah, I think it's 176 days or something until we play Texas. It's coming. It's right around the corner, 173, I think maybe. It's coming. And we got to be ready to go with this team and this group. And that's just the way it goes. And, we want to continue to stack these years, and got to be playing our best football at the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, that's not going to change. And, I think last year with everybody coming back and, some of the additions that we made, it sort of created a lot of attention nationally. And that was what it was, but ultimately that shouldn't have affected how we went about our work. That's just stuff on the outside. And, whatever they're going to say about this team shouldn't affect how we go to work each day and how we start our first game.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, guys, thanks. Yep.
And folks will migrate out onto the indoor.
Yeah, up to that. He's gonna try to jump right in. See, James, you went all spiffied up and shit. You went and got all cleaned up. Huh? Going where? I'm going to, hey.
Folks, we'll give you guys a couple minutes to get set up, and then we're going to go ahead and we'll have Tyler Bowen to your right on the 10. We have Tim Walton on the 20. We have Matt Patricia on the
Going to Club 40. Room, both of them. Hey, Matt, you got to learn how to strategically do it. Get all the pubs so I can get all over there. By the time they get through my 10 minutes up, I'm out the door. I won't get but 3 questions. Hey, Matt. Hey, come on, ask me 3 questions. I'm good. All them up. Right there. Get that over there. I'm on the clock. Say I'll be quick. No, yes you can. You can let me sit here, and then in about 3 minutes I'll be up. It's strategically.
How are you enjoying your new role?
It's good. It's cool. It's worked with Matt before, so the relationship. We'll build it together. It'll be fun. It'll be exciting for the guys.
What do you know about Matt from working with him? What did you when you heard that he was a possibility to join the staff here? What did you tell Ryan about your experience?
Really sharp, high football IQ. Really understands the game. Knows how to affect quarterbacks. You know what I mean? And passionate about it. So. I have a lot of energy, be passionate about it, really detailed. So it was fun because we'll be able to really, try to go affect guys on offense. Really high football IQ.
He's sort of a front-end guy. You're sort of a back-end guy. How do those conversations work with you guys sort of trying to put those pieces together? What is that process like?
Yeah, it's pretty easy because, we all know football. You know what I mean? And like we kind of speak the same language. Been on around a lot of the same backgrounds and format of defense. So that part is easy blending because I know more than just the back end stuff. He knows more than just the front end stuff. You know what I mean? So been in a lot of different systems and been in places where that stuff can tie in together. And it'd be fun. But it'll work really smooth.
Is your day look any different? Is your responsibility responsibility? Like, how different is your day now than it was?
Well, now we just, we kind of adding some new pieces and things with Matt here, just catching them up to speed with, how some of the things have functioned before and how to blend the stuff together with the new stuff we want to do. Some of the stuff that's the same, how we blend it, and, things like that. So it's, I mean, it's good, just really kind of giving him the blueprint of the background stuff, that how things have been going, and just giving him the lay of the land so he can see how it works. There's some of the things will be a little different from the NFL. Well, kind of the same a little bit. It's just now be working more closely with Matt on things, on, game planning and, how we tie stuff together more. So.
You knew him, obviously, you guys worked together at Syracuse. What benefit is that for you? And, how have you been forced to sort of bridge the gap with him?
Well, that was good because, like I said, we worked together before and we speak the same language. We know, he spent 20 plus years in the NFL. I was 12 years in the NFL. So a lot of the language, a lot of the guys, the tree that he's under, and a lot of guys that I were close with really kind of have the same background. So those things in the language and the understanding of the fronts and coverages and how I tie in, kind of some similarities there. So that part would be a good blend. Just really kind of show him the lay of the land, a little bit of the college perspective, because it's changed a little bit since he's been there. You know what I mean?
It's different, obviously, at Ohio State. A new offensive coordinator comes in, gets Ryan, right? Is this still Jim Knowles' defense? Is this the Ohio State defense now? Like, what is the identity of this defense?
It'll be Ohio State's defense. You know what I mean? It'll be a collaborative group effort on pulling things together. Some new stuff, some stuff we did in the past, Coach Day's thoughts, it'll be a group effort of things, trying to pull it together to get the right mix and the right fit, because we've done a lot of good things here in the past, but, some things we need to tweak and adjust, and we'll just kind of blend it all and see how it goes.
Second year for Aaron and Bryce. How big is this spring for them, and what, where could they be? Brian talked about the fact that IGB is not going to be getting as many reps as some of the guys. So this is a spring where there's probably some real opportunity for those guys to sort of make a statement.
Yeah, we have to see what some guys can do. Big for Aaron, big from Bryce. We're really excited about them and the upside and the potential. They're really good players, really good young guys with a lot of potential, big upside. And we need to see them, put them in position to see them get a chance to get a lot of reps, execute and do things. We have a few guys, IGB, Caleb, that's played a lot of snaps, so we need to really see the rest of the guys, put them in different positions, game-like positions, and see how they function over a 3 or 4 week period. Probably so. Probably so. Yeah. But all those things, though, we'll work on that. Like, even though I was in the league, we have streaks where guys get penalties. Those things happen a little bit. You know what I mean? You want to keep learning and grow for it. You know what I mean? What happens is, we go back through it and look through it. Some of them, he's got to do a better job. It's 2 or 3 of them with questionable calls in there. Yeah. Yeah, well, all those things kind of play a factor. Doesn't matter. They call it. We got to work through it. So we got to put ourselves in a position to be better with it regardless, because it's kind of a thing for you now. So you got to find a way to remove that. And you do that by working on it and doing the little things at the top of the route to help you, overcome that part of it, which we will. We'll work on that all this spring. That part will be big.
I know you and Matt Garrett very closely together in the secondary. Just how did that year together last year help prepare you this year? We have a new coordinator on kind of keep together.
Yeah, it helps a lot with it. We work together. So, like I said, me and Coach Gray got a great relationship, and we're able to blend stuff together. And we're kind of showing them some of the stuff that we've done here, and it's all football, man. It's all the same. It's just, whether you call it apples or oranges, it's all, cover 3, cover 1, cover 2, those same things. So we just got to blend it and make sure the verbiage and all that stuff is in place.
It's not unusual for young corners to come in and make an impact in the spring. You came in right away and played so freshman year. What do you want to see from some of the younger guys coming in for their first spring?
Compete. I want to see you compete. I want to see you have a chance to make plays on the ball. I want to see you have a chance to be in competitive situations and apply the things that you know. So that's a big for us to see, because that's game like. The good thing for us, we see the best receivers in college football. We're going to see one of the top offenses in college football. So we get a chance to experience real game-like situations in one-on-ones, 7-on-7s, team drills. So I look to see them compete and then try to execute in game-like moments, because that's critical. That's how you get game ready. It's not just the drills. Now can you go play the game of football and go apply situations?
I'll miss somebody. I just spitting off names. I'll go all the way back. I think early in my career, I was fortunate to play for a really good head coach that was run-minded and very diverse in what we did, and then also become a young coach in my first job, and that would be Ralph Friedgen. That someone comes to mind right away. But then even moving on, the spread game with Coach Moorhead, where I was with him at a couple different places and running that type of system. Invaluable, the experience I had with the Jacksonville Jaguars, with what we did. Wasn't a great year from a result standpoint, but you take a lot of knowledge from that situation. And then, go into a place like I just came from, where you're in a rebuild and you're having to evolve every year. Your personnel may not be necessarily to go equate, but we've got to figure out how to equate the talent and equate the run game based on what we have. So I think all those have been valuable experience. I don't know if there's, one person in particular. I would say you take good and bad from everywhere you go. And I'm not trying to give a cop-out answer, but that's the truth. If nothing else, I don't believe you can be in this profession and not be a lifelong learner. And that's how I view it every year. If we're not studying best practices of technique, if we're not studying best practices of what's new schematically, if we're not looking at our own film and saying, how could we make this better? How can we enhance it? Then we're going to fall behind.
I'm interested from a recruiting standpoint. You spend a lot of time getting to know kids, and then you take a job, right? You have to switch.
Right.
How does the messaging shift when you go from any place? Obviously, from Virginia Tech to Ohio State, you're recruiting a lot of the same kids.
Right.
How does the message change? Is it just, man, I didn't understand Ohio State's different because of this, or is it just still about the personal relationship?
Yeah, I think it starts with the personal relationship for sure. There's a trust level that's built in any relationship we have, but it's also kind of bridging the gap of what this program means. And I think it's a good testimony for guys that I had prior relationships with on, why did I want to come here? Why did I want to be a part of this, what I think is the best program in college football. So I think that part of it makes the communication easy, but it still starts with those personal relationships. Those don't go away,
A wow moment for you in the month you've been here of maybe realizing, like, this is why a place like Ohio State is at the top of the heap?
I wouldn't say a wow. It is what I expected it to be, but more. And I'd say that all starts with Coach Day's vision. Just how the program is ran day to day, the detail, the organization, how everyone has a very detailed role of what they need to accomplish for the greater good. And I think that's, from a player standpoint, from a coach standpoint, I think that's very unique. And he's at the top of the heap with that.
You guys haven't been
Excuse me. Sorry. Go.
Would you think? How that process start?
Well, obviously, you know what's going on in the landscape of coaching. I think it was a time, if I'm remembering correctly, it's all been a whirlwind. We were out on the road, or I was on the road, and number popped up, and it was great because I'd been around Coach Day before when I was down in Jacksonville and knew a couple people here, and obviously have always competing against this program and also admiring it from afar. Was very excited, and then the conversation started from there in the interview process.
Why leave? For obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think you think about alignment with the type of coaches you want to be around, the type of head coach you want to work for, the ability to compete at the highest level. I think all of those things attracted me here.
You get here, you have to evaluate the guys that are already here, the returning starters you've had. You guys haven't been in a practice yet, but what are your early impressions of like Carson at center, the guards that you guys are bringing back, and then the tackles? Like, you didn't recruit these guys, you didn't maybe not met any of them until now. What are your early impressions of like the stock that you have in the room right now?
Right. You said it best first. I'm going to reserve a lot until we get on the field. Obviously, there's a body of work with some guys from last year that you're seeing on film, watching every snap that they went through last year, and guys moving around and all those things. I'd say the thing that stands out to me is the athleticism in the room. We got guys that can pull and kick out and get on the perimeter and do things. I think there's a general level of athleticism that sticks out, and guys that have experienced different spots. So you hope as we get into spring, that, and hope's a bad strategy, but as we go through spring, we're able to create some flexibility up front.
When you had your conversation with Ryan about this job, how big a part of those conversations was the recruiting aspect of this, and how much did that matter, do you think, in your hiring process?
I don't know that that'd be a question for him. I mean, I hope that everywhere I've been, I think you make an impression on people as a recruiter, as a coach. I always view it, whatever job you're at, you're interviewing every day, not even just for that job, but what your reputation is. So I hope that played a part of it, but not sure. I'm just here to work. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Hey. Oh, Tyler Bowen. Yep. Nice to meet you. Yeah. No, it's just a habit. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, definitely.
Can you walk me through this? Because this is very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
This particular play, because I see this backside tackle.
Yep.
And he or I guess it's play side. But he pulls
He's
around.
backside.
Yeah, but he goes in stays backside.
Yeah. So we're running the stretch zone. Okay, we've got a non-adjacent combo. So generally, if we were to run this play traditional, the tight end would be on the play side, right? And he would be arc releasing or
Text
double
me right
teaming or whatever. Now we're going to bring him from the backside and help the tackle from inside, and then that's just just an
I apologize for that.
Front. Okay. Combo that.
How nice is it to have Caleb Downs foundation for us?
It makes a big difference having them in the room. Anytime that you lose guys, you're always growing your depth. Obviously losing Lathan, and that'll be a critical thing for us as we fill those shoes. But when you have a guy like Caleb, from who he is a person, from a leadership standpoint, from a safety skill standpoint, it's easy as a coach and you say, hey, just watch Caleb Downs, follow what Caleb Downs does, right? So that's made it much easier from that standpoint.
How do you kind of assess where you are in replacing Lathan? What do you think?
Yeah, that starts even before that process happens. You're going back and you're saying, okay, you're projecting who's leaving your room, that type of stuff, and you're developing those guys. So that's been an ongoing process. And then this winter, the workouts have been incredibly intense and competitive from everybody in the room. Anytime that you have a job open like that. But no, it's been great from those guys, and spring ball is going to be really big.
What are your impressions right now of Leroy? Look like developmental years.
Yeah. Leroy, he got his black stripe off early as a freshman, and that was earned. He's had an awesome offseason. I think when you guys see him at spring practice, he's going to look like a different guy physically. He's a different guy mentally. He's been incredibly competitive. He's definitely one of our most improved guys, when you say what they've done in the offseason workouts.
And then, I'll try to ask this as best I can. You can't use Caleb as a reference because Caleb is almost like a one-of-one type of player. Starts as true freshman, All-American, the whole night. But you also know that the standard is the standard. How do you evaluate the guys that might play beside him without evaluating them from a Caleb perspective, knowing
what he does is so.
Yeah, I think each guy you look at individually. You know, I mean, you have, you can compare and you say, hey, this guy does this really well or that type of stuff. You know, excellence is a standard for us, which means you're doing your absolute best. You're doing what we ask you to do. So I would say you do it more on an individual basis of, okay, what does that guy do well? What doesn't he do well? How do we train him to improve those things? Is he taking the coaching? Is he applying it on the field? Like at the end of the day, as a coach, we're evaluated on the production on the field. That's all that matters, right? So we're very critical of those things, and we're hard on ourselves as coaches and hard on the players to be able to get those things done. Yeah, Caleb is obviously unique, right? His development level is unique. His readiness for college is unique. His football intelligence, his mental makeup, all those things are unique. So that enhances the entire room. So I think, yeah, not so much from a comparison standpoint, but that helps bring other guys along to get to that level.
You saw Jalen play a lot as a freshman. What does Fahim need to do in the next 2.5 months or whatever to prove that maybe he can be on like a Jalen type of path where he plays a lot as a freshman or even pushes for the role beside Caleb?
Yeah, we're excited about Fahim. Obviously excited about him from, when we recruited him. But what does he need to do? He needs to do his job at max capacity, just like any of the guys, right? Why did Jalen McClain do what he did? We probably weren't talking about Jalen McClain this time a year ago, from that standpoint. And
Did that going through that experience that spring maybe change maybe the way you would operate from where you found your own position, how you would think about things?
Yeah, I think it makes an impact in everything. Everything. So not just just the viewpoint you get when the seat changes. I took it in. I haven't forgot it. Say it one more time. No. It's not changed.
Jeremiah had just everything, the way he played, but maybe even more so his maturity, just how he handled everything as a true freshman. You played here. You've seen a lot of guys come and go. How would you describe the freshman year you had?
Yeah, I think Jeremiah's freshman year was excellent. I think that there was never really an expectation leading into it. The expectation was to attack every day and try to maximize oneself and make sure nothing is given, everything would be earned, and that continues to this day. So I think the way he went about it, way everyone went about it, allowed for the growth. I think it was very evident where and how he felt game one, practice one, meeting one, to where he ended up at the end of the year. So to have that kind of growth, embody that up, and then have that growth again is what we're chasing. So I know that's what he's chasing, and making sure we understand, that mindset that allowed you to do what you did your freshman year. That really can't change. We got to find ways to have at least that, enhance it from there to continue our growth, to continue his growth, and I think he's doing a great job with it. Yeah, I gave a lot of thought to it. I really haven't made any final decisions of it, but we'll make that decision when we kind of get there. Obviously, Coach Day's input will be huge. Getting around the staff and continue to see how we build and where we excel and where maybe we lack, I think is really important. But I've given a lot of thought to it. No decisions yet.
What do you want to see from JJ this spring and the plan for him? He played a much longer season than he played before in high school. So what do things look like him to work on this spring?
Yeah, I think everyone played a lot longer than they ever have. I think, heading to this spring, it's just the teardown of the former foundation and the rebuild of a whole new team. I mean, you have to have that mindset. You have to have a day one mindset in order to progress. You can't rely on previously built, culture or schematic understanding. There's no assumptions. So you have to rebuild from scratch. We're in the process of that. We will treat day one like day one. That includes Jeremiah Smith. And so great opportunity to evaluate and grow a new group of guys. I think in spring, I think our opinion is, by fall, it's everything, the team. It's what it's all about. But in order to add to a team, in order to add to a collective, you got to focus on the individual. The individual must improve so the collective can improve. And so building the base, I think schematically and fundamentally, and culturally, is what we're attacking as we head into spring.
How much is Brandon looking forward to a different spring, a different opportunity? I know it wasn't fun for him having to take a little bit of a backseat to Emeka. Where do you see him fire, the passion right now as he gets ready for this one?
Yeah, I think when you come out of a season, you get out of January and kind of take a breath. And then when you get back in the winter, it's the first opportunity to reestablish the new role that I want to have, right? I mean, across the board, there's not one guy that doesn't want an improved role. So I think they're all attacking it that way. I think Brandon's one of them, but he's one of 50. And I think that it's our job to provide opportunities to grow, to separate themselves, to see peer-to-peer evals, to allow these guys to chase a role. At least through winter, they've gotten that started. To continue that through spring, and I think Brandon's fits in line with that. I think Brandon did a great job looking back of finding his role last year and excelling at it. We know we talk a lot about if you want to be a starter, you have to be a starter before you're the starter. And if you're not, then you're never going to be the starter. So I think he embodied that. He gave himself an opportunity to get into winter, continue who he is, continue to build, his base, build his leadership. And then now he's got to take that into spring. So all the great things you do prior doesn't mean anything if you don't go out there and do it in the spring. So, that's the harsh reality of the sport. What have you done lately? And I think all these guys are chewing at the bit to get back on the field.
Everybody brings their own experiences, right? Ryan was a quarterback, you were a receiver, and then become a play caller. Obviously, you have an understanding of the whole offense. But what was the process like for you of protections and the run game and quarterback play and just continuing to grow with your knowledge of that part of the game as you prepared for this position?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always growing. I think that, you still have a specialty or you still have an expertise in one area. To assume you have an expertise in all of it, that's just not true. In my opinion, I've seen multiple coordinators, and I know that as a fact. So, for me, I think it's just you have an opportunity to be with the best staff in America every single day, with the best head coach in America, to just stay off your phone and pay attention and take notes and actually maximize your time. It's amazing the amount of people that don't do that. So every time I'm in a meeting, I just try to make sure I'm getting a nugget or I'm getting information, or when things are said, do I truly understand it? And the guys will tell you, I don't care. I'll ask the question, and you may think I look dumb, but I don't care because I want to know the information. So I think that approach, I think a lot of guys have that approach. That approach allows you to just build, over time, and then that'll continue to build from now to game one, and then it'll build through the season. So the opportunity to grow is literally daily. So I just try to make sure I'm finding those opportunities, or I'm aware of those opportunities when they're right in my face. Yeah, Coach Jordan's always been a huge part of the receiver room. I think that, he's just understanding that, my pull away is real, that can happen. So he's got to be on his toes and being ready that, we're ready to not skip a beat, right? So information wise, communication wise, he's got to be locked in on that and just not assume that, Coach Hart's got it. He never really has. I expect him to continue to do that. And, he's been a big part of everything we've done.
Away from being a quarterback's coach, where you have to have somebody you trust, and how long did it take maybe to develop that trust, that relationship with Devin, to where that, hey, if I'm pulled away for a second, Devin's got this, and I don't have to worry about what my will is.
I think it's more important that I do a great job being organized, so I'm never pulled away. I will be in that receiver room, and they will be coached at the very highest level. So I think there's ways to eliminate being pulled away by being organized on top of things and having the right work and right help before that receiver meeting ever happens. Nothing's going to change in my involvement in the receiver room.
Ryan, for Milan to be going through a full spring, full off season for the first time, what do you look at are the biggest areas he can grow to push the plane?
Yeah, I mean, Milan is he's doing a great job. He's growing at an exponential rate. He's getting stronger. He's getting bigger. He's got weight added. And I would tell you, I always explain to him, you don't realize how much you've missed when you come in June versus a mid-year. It's massively different. Not saying you can't overcome it. Some do at the end of the season. Some have. But, I think that's probably reliant on the room. I know Chris had an opportunity late, Olave, in the season to kind of make an impact, but it's very, very rare. So, and now, he's going through the winter workout, his growth, his everything he's done. He's like, hey, Coach Hart, I know what you're talking about now when you missed that section of winter workout. So that being said, it makes you laugh, but he's doing a great job. I have high expectations for him through spring, and I don't see that changing. What's the average? Is like the average, is the average age? Does that include support staff? I got you. What's it been in the past?
Couple minutes, folks. 2 more minutes.
Huh? Well, no kidding. Yeah. I don't know. Dan Lanning's the head coach at Oregon. How's his average? I'm asking. I know. I'm 38. So I really don't know. I gave zero thought to that. I think that I think your ability to connect with players is important. I think you probably see a little bit of that happening in the NFL as well. I really have given zero thought to that, so I don't want to just ramble on that. But I don't know. No thought to it.
Hey, you were. What's the next step for him? Because we heard Emeka talk about Mr. Consistency, catching a lot of things. He seems to generate a little bit of buzz, but has a little bit of role. Now he's got an opportunity. What's the next step for him to get that up?
Take the next step and be everything he's capable of being. Right. I mean, I think the guys that are out there are very consistent in all job phases. I think he wants to be a full-rounded receiver. He knows that. I think he loves playing in the slot. Did a great job there. I asked him to come out to the outside a little bit. Did a good job out there. I think his natural position is in the slot, doing a great job there. But it's just another opportunity to establish himself based on his peers, right? I mean, it's kind of like the draft. I try to explain sometimes these guys, like, you come to Ohio State to compete with the best and be alongside the best. It's always peer-to-peer evals. Like, that's how it works. Like, the draft embodies that. Like, if it's easier to go play somewhere else, then that's fine. If that's what we're kind of looking for per se, I'm not saying that's Bryson. I'm just saying it's a very competitive room, and you chose that because of this room. Now you got to beat your peer to play more and do more and all that stuff. So, I think that he's got to continue to build where he's at. And the guys that seem to be, starters in our room, really, I think over the last 8 years have been NFL quality guys. So if you end up becoming a starter at Ohio State, there's a good chance you're probably an NFL caliber receiver. I mean, again, I'm just going off the numbers. So you're chasing that. Can't get discouraged on maybe not being, not doing what you think you should have done. And that goes for everybody. It's not just Bryson, but all these guys are chasing that, as I ramble about Bryson. But, I think that it's not just him. It's at BI, it's Carnell. Everybody is chasing a higher level of play. And this spring is another step forward to do that. So.
You worked under multiple play callers. Like, how much, in your estimation, is that a gift to be able to do it? And how much of it is learned? And where do you stand on that?
Never gave it a lot of thought to it. I've never called a play in a game. So for me to have an opinion, I think that'd be a little brash. I would say that, like anything, it's probably a skill that you can improve on and do better at and do good and do worse at. I think being surrounded with guys and seeing how they do it has been a blessing. And it's very clear there's more than one way to do things. So being aware of that, I've noticed that.
What's your impression of the 3 freshmen and how they maybe transition?
Yeah, all 4 freshmen I'm like very encouraged, impressed with. They carry themselves the right way, like we have hoped. They work their tails off. They've all improved. I would say that they're the right mold. They're the right fit. They belong in the room. And now they have to just improve. Now they're competing both, first individually between each other. And then, as we get into spring, they'll start competing against each other with the rest of the guys, what I mean by that. So, but as a group, the freshman group, very impressed, and they're off to the right start.
Great. Coach Hartline, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Couple right there, and then your phone. Coach Johnson, you're ready?
Goes back to habits, and we talked about it a lot last year, and he got way better as the season went on, but it's habits, and then it's leadership. And I think what we've seen so far in the winter is him taking a more like active leadership role. And obviously Sonny is a great leader for us, but you kind of see the development of Arvell being a leader as well. And Malcolm Jenkins talked to our guys last year, and I thought he had a great message for everybody. He said, like, everyone should want to be like the leader or like the captain of their class. And it's like a mindset. So I've kind of adopted that. And obviously Malcolm and I played together, but the whole idea of, like, if you're Peyton Pierce or Garrett Stover, you guys should both be like the leaders of your class. You know what I mean? And then obviously that trickles down to, TJ, Riley, and Eli, but it's just a mindset. It's a mindset anyway. If you're a linebacker, you just naturally have to be a leader. You got to communicate so much. So it's getting him to kind of, for Veli, get out of his shell, which he did last year. And I on purpose, would roomed him with like Cody Simon on the road for multiple reasons. Make sure that he was awake and coming to meetings on time. But just like there was a maturity, obviously, that Cody had, having gone through it, and pairing him with Veli. But he's had a phenomenal winter so far, and I'm excited to see him compete here once we get back.
That's how you try to coach that, huh? Because in essence, when coaching somebody to be a leader, pair them with a leader.
I mean, yeah. I think a lot of times, leadership, it's hard. Like, you can try to teach leadership for sure, but a lot of it's like, it's just caught. You know what I mean? Like, when you're around it, you just see it. And everybody has a different style. So that's one of the things I've stressed to Arvell. I've even stressed it to Sonny. Like, you guys don't have to be Cody Simon. Just because Cody Simon was a great leader, he did it in his way. Like, if you try to be somebody else and you're not authentic to yourself and your own personality, then the locker room will notice. Like, if you're a guy who's pretty quiet and all of a sudden you're trying to give all these uncomfortable rah-rah speeches and it's not who you are, like, that's not going to go over well. You know what I mean? And I've always seen people do that. And so you have to get comfortable in like who you are. AJ Hawk was a great leader. AJ barely said anything when we were at practice. But then when AJ spoke, you're like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, but he was quiet. He did everything right. He worked his tail off. So there's ways to be a leader and to encourage guys. Some guys are encouragers, and then they go and find a way to move the room by being, one-off conversations. And then there's some guys who can be screamers. And some of that too is like, who are you leading? If player A might not respond well to you just trying to yell at him loud, he might need a, encouragement, then pull him aside and be like, hey, I know you got more than that. You know what I mean? We need you. We're depending on you. But it has to be one-on-one, because if you embarrass him in front of the group, they'll shut down. Or player B can be like, you can yell at him all you want and he'll be fine. You know what I mean? So like, you have to know your teammates as part of leadership. And so it takes time. It takes time each and every day with everyone that you play with. And it's the same thing as a coach, right? Like, it takes time. You need to invest time in your guys so that they know that you care about them. That way you can be hard on them. If you don't invest that time and you're just trying to yell or motivate, it's just going to go in one ear out the other. So leadership's the same way.
Conditionally, we have an idea who's going to jump to the front, but it's a challenge right now. That's a good thing.
Larry, how about the dynamic? Obviously, you, new defensive coordinator and everyone else is here. Just talk about the way this is coming together. How much change do you think we'll see with this defense?
Well, I think, first of all, Coach Patricia is a great coach. They're very smart, and he's done a good job of introducing what he feels is his philosophy, trying to merge two different things together. See, like, not take a lot away, but kind of do his own thing. And it's a great defensive scheme to play in, but he's more, I guess he talked earlier, more about getting guys in the right position to really contribute to the game. I think that's the biggest thing you take from it. So I think it's coming together real well. I mean, he's on the ground 3 weeks trying to put this thing together. We got a really great staff in the room with us to kind of pull this together. But I'm really excited about what he brings to the table and where we go from here defensively.
How did this run re-energize you?
It does. You like life, things challenge you again, right? You're all about a challenge, and this is a challenge. And I look forward to, run through it head on, see what happens, right? And that's what it's all about. And that's why I get up every morning and excited about these group of guys, because you get to mold them the right way again. Yeah.
Matt's been a multiple guy, four-man club, three-man fun.
We'll be a multiple defense. And that's the thing that I think that he wants to do. And we've done that before, so it's just a matter of continuing to do that a different way. Yeah.
How much of an adjustment is that for you? Because you've been a 4-3 guy.
Well, 4-3, you take a 4-3, everybody gets confused that I'm a 4-3 guy, but really, you take a 4-3, you take in, stand them up, you can slide to a 3-4 just like that. You know what I mean? And that's multiple defense without changing any personnel. And so it's a 4-man brunt, but we can go to a 3-man, a 4-man, a 5-man, 6-man in a heartbeat with the guys on the field. So I think that we've been multiple, but we keep saying it's a 4-man front, but it can be an interchangeable 4-man front. Yeah, that's it. That's all it's, man. It's how you look at it. Everybody can say it's 4-man front, 4-man front. Not really when you kind of to the pieces. The 4 guys can stay on the field, and you can pop JT or pack KJ up, and next thing you know, it looks like a 3-4. But it's 4 guys on the field playing that's been in the game. And so I think that we kind of lose how we can play defense now because you can't substitute every play to get a new personnel. So those guys got to be able to play from a 4-man to a 3-man or whatever happens. You have to be ready to do that.
Do you think you'll have more opportunities to coach CJ Hicks this year? What would you envision for a role for him?
Well, he's with me right now. So CJ is with me right now and trying to learn how to play the position. And I want him to learn how to play the position as a defensive end, stand up if we get to that moment, and not as a linebacker. I think that's the transition. He's got to go through. He's done an outstanding job thus far. He's bought in to what we're doing, and I think that's the key when a guy buy-in, like, this is what I want to do. And he has a really good skill set, so we can use him in a lot of ways, but we don't want to use him just third down, right? We want to use him first and second down. So my job is to get him ready to play the run from on the line of scrimmage, opposed to being in space. That's different. And once we accomplish as we go, then I think he'll give her a chance to give us some great depth there and really do some good things for us. I'm excited about him because he's really excited about the position change.
Larry, when you talk about being multiple, how impactful can a guy like CJ be because of his versatility, whether stand up?
Yeah, that's a bonus if he can do that, right? Because he stays on the field. And then you bring a guy from space, you can drop him from space, or you can blitz him. And I think that as we go forward, I think we're trying to build that. We just can't build it around one guy. You got to build out what capable he can do on the field. And so, like I said, it's early stage, so it's hard to say this is what we're going to do because we're just putting it together. But I know that CJ is very happy where he's at. He seemed to have a really good time understanding what we're doing. And so we'll look how it goes from there.
What did you see from him last year that made you think that he could be impactful?
Well, we know he can rush. He's got great speed off the edge. He really can get off the ball. That we know that. Now, like I said before, can he play on a tight end and a 6 technique? Standing up in 2 feet playing. That's the thing he has to learn how to do. Once he masters that, their rush stuff will come easy because now he's on the field. And that's what we try to work on as we get going into it. We can walk out of spring with him feel really good about playing a run and rushing faster. Man, we got a bonus, and that's the goal.
During camp last year, you mentioned Josh Nichols as a guy who was coming on.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. Where did he end the season, and how close do you think he is to being a guy who's going to factor into your?
I think as we move forward, I think he has to factor in. I think every guy is factoring right now, right? Because of the depth, right? So we lose some great players, and now we're going to get these young guys ready fast, and so we're going to need all hands on deck.
Your room typically has guys who start to show it in year 2.
Yes, if I would have.
It just seems like a trend. They start showing year 2, and then they kind of burst into the season of the interviews. A guy like Jason, I've talked with him a lot. Just didn't seem to come together in year 2. How can he kind of make up for that and get to where you need him to be, not just what you need him to be for year 3, where he's probably more necessary than he was last year?
Yeah, I think Jason's got to play football. He's got to play more football in live situation, right? So he didn't get a lot of shots playing in games. And so this offseason is his biggest offseason. I've said to him, we were in conversation that this is a year, this is the time. Moves forward. The process is now built. Now he's got to go. And I think he's ready for that challenge. So I'm looking for great things for him as go forward. He seemed to be in a good space right now. I like where he's at. But we got a lot of days to go to get him ready. So I'm very confident he'll be ready.
I guess the same thing when it comes to Will. He's injured, I think, his freshman year.
Yeah.
Hasn't really played a lot of football for you.
Yeah.
Is it kind of the same thing with him, or is it a little different with him?
A little different. We changed his position a little bit, trying to find the right fit for him. He went from a 3 tech to a nose guard, so I think we're going to play a little bit 1 technique. I'm really pleased where he's at right now. He's gotten stronger, he's got bigger, he's quicker, and so I'm looking forward to as we go into the spring football how he comes out. But so far, so good. I mean, I think he has a chance to help us.
What made you Jackson played a good number of snaps?
Yeah.
What does he need to do to be ready to take on an even bigger role?
Well, he's got to be a leader, first of all. So that's a role for him that he has not been in. He's going to be the leader to move the unit. And so far, he's doing a great job doing that. Now he's going to be the guy who's going to have to demonstrate the production for us and move the stick for us, yardstick for us in our defensive end. And I think he has a chance to do that. Now he's going to play 40, 50 plays, so we'll see him more. And I think we'll see his talent come to front.
What made you want to bring in Logan George, and how do you see him fitting into this?
Well, you look for a fit, right? The most important thing, he fit. Does he fit our defense? Does he fit our schemes? Does he fit our culture? That's all important when you bring a guy in from the port. It's got to be a fit. And sitting, talking to him, talking to the family, talking to his coach was really, really raved about him as a player. And then once we sit down and met and talk, I felt like he fit our room. He's a great character, can rush. You know what I mean? He plays hard, and everything you want to see, you got to have, he has. And so I'm looking forward to seeing where he goes from here. Yeah.
Is there anything you're not thinking? He's from the same hometown as Tommy Togiai.
Yeah. Same high school.
Yeah. Is there anything with the Togiais that helped you learn more about Logan?
Yeah, well, not necessarily about learn, but I know the head coach really well. And in a minute, I picked the phone and called him. I mean, he gave rave reviews of him as a player, as a person, you know, and that was the end for me because you're going to have some information. And then the head coach was just couldn't love him because couldn't stop talking about him as a player and a person. And so when I brought him in and talked to mom and dad and set him down, like, wow, it was pretty good.
What do you need to see from a guy like him to know that can translate to Ohio State? Because this is like, well, it's actually quite literally the top of the sport right now.
Yeah.
So how do you know that that's going to translate from FCS?
Based on what I've seen thus far, and the skill set is there. It's going to translate. Okay. You know, it's going to translate. If not, I made a huge mistake. Yeah,
no, I was just,
yeah, it's going to translate. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, you know, it's a big moment now, right? But he's done a great job. I can tell you that. I'm really looking forward to him, and he's been all business, and that's what you want. He's a great leader in the room. He's helping the young guys, but he goes on the field. He works, and that's what I want. Yeah.
Larry, I think this is something that probably all of us
have
talked about at times over the years. So
Yeah.
I'll just ask you.
Yep.
Was there anything in Jim Knowles' time here where his style of defense and your style of defense did not exactly mesh?
No, never.
Why do you think we think that?
Because you guys think he's a 3-4. You guys looked at his system at Oklahoma and thought that way he's going to bring the jack thing here. You know what I mean? That's what you thought, right? And so when you looked at that, everybody was looking for a 3-4 defense. But you got to remember, we have all these 4-3 guys here. And so you have to change the way you recruit if you're going to change the defense, the scheme set, right? And I think we tried Jack Sawyer at that position to do it, right? And then as the season went on and teams were playing offensively, you know what I mean? It was predicate to more and having 4 guys on the field and changing it up. So it would never like I don't chase stories and lies out there because nobody's asking me this question here first. But Jim and I had a really great conversation about what we're doing. There was never a moment where hey, I don't want the 3-4. There was never that. Is that what's the best fit?
He's done a great job becoming a leader, coming out of his shell. I think for Veli, it's all about consistency and just preparation. And I'm proud of Arvell. You know, he's through the season, he got way better at, you know, a lot of it's like little things, just note taking and stuff. Like sometimes these kids are always on their phones and stuff, not like in meeting rooms or anything like that, but just naturally. So like to get out a pen and paper and like you hear things and immediately, oh yeah, I got it. Well, you do until you're dog tired and then you forget because you're tired, you know what I mean? But when you really understand it, you know what I mean? Like you'll play faster. And he got so much better through the year. Just a lot of that's because of Cody, like becoming a pro. And then now it's like Sonny's pulling him along and he's pulling Peyton along and Peyton's pulling TJ and Riley and Eli. So like in Stove, like, so I love the competition in our room right now and the way it's made up. But yeah, he's on a great path right now.
How many different guys do you feel like can be in that Mike spot? Obviously losing Cody and now having
You know, I think that's something that's fluid as we kind of go. Because, you know, week 1, Sonny actually started at Mike for us. And Sonny's smart enough to play them all. Arvell is smart enough to play them all. Payne Pierce is smart enough to play them all. And that's also like, how do you, like, it depends on what scheme you're running. Like, how are they being utilized as well? You know what I mean? So you could say Mike Backer, you know, whether it's Tommy Eichenberg or Arvell Reese are 2 different people, and Cody's different from those 2. So my challenge to like a lot of the guys as they come in is just you got to learn them both. The more you understand about the scheme in general, the faster you will play. You know what I mean? Like if I just sit here and I say, hey, I got to learn Mike, I mean, my drop is this, and that's all I need to know. Like, well, no, football happens so fast and all the shifts and motions that like, if you're out there just playing and you're waiting for a call and and you're just reacting, like you're so worried about what's going on your side of the ball, you don't even recognize that the offense is telling you something with what they're doing. So if I'm out there and also I'm not getting a call, I know what the call should be. And it's like, hey, are we playing? Let's go. Now all of a sudden you get it. You can look. I can see, okay, here's what the tight end's doing. That's what the back's doing. Here's what plays are coming. But if you just line up and play, it's run or pass every time, like, you don't stand a chance. You got to eliminate plays in your mind by seeing what the offense is doing. Like they tell you a story every time they line up. They just window dress it. Some people motion and shift. They're trying to, are they trying to do man zone indicators? Are they trying to make sure that they're getting the same formation, they run the same plays, but they just shifted people and then they motion, they moved, and they don't want you to recognize it. So if we're always worried about what word, you know what I mean? So the more you know, the faster you can play, because you're not sitting there thinking, oh, what do I have? You're reacting because you already know what you have. So my challenge to guys is always to know both. So I think a lot of it would just be on depth. I'm sure guys will get, if Sonny's only doing 50 to 75% of his plays, then probably more guys get more will reps than they've had, because we need more will bodies. That's technically where Sonny has started, but we'll rotate him through and let the production kind of show what it does. And I think sometimes, you'll live with some of the mistakes just from being in a new spot, but you'll be able to judge too, like who's actually getting in the book. You know what I mean? Who's actually studying both.
How much growth have you seen from Sonny in this time a year ago through the national championship game, and then what's next?
Man, I mean, definitely. I know Sonny has big goals, and he should. I do as well for him, and to see how far he's come. The first thing that kind of stands out is just like his footwork has gotten so much better. When you're in the box as a linebacker, you got to be able to. I remember Luke Fickle used to say it all the time, that you got to be slow till it's time to be fast. And when you're twitchy like he is, a lot of times, when you're at safety, you're used to, pulling the trigger and rolling. Like you gotta learn how to shuffle and not cross over. And he got so much better as the year went on. I think a lot of people question whether he'd be able to hold up physicality wise. And, and he was great. As the season got on, he's really good with his hands. He has a really natural ability to snag. We'll keep challenging him. I think he should be a dominant guy in coverage. Like he needs to be a guy that we can put on a tight end and be like, he ain't catching the ball. You know what I mean? Because he has that athleticism. And I think we need to challenge him there. Challenge him. I think everything is just, and this is not just Sonny, it's everyone. It's urgency in zone coverage. I mean, the urgency with you have to break on the football to close that space, to not let the ball carrier have so much space on you to cut and make you miss is critical. I think sometimes he can be so athletic that, you can get away with some stuff, and he knows it. Like anything that I'm saying right now, like, he already knows. So the best part is a lot of times, like he'll come to me before film and already say like, man, coach, on that play, I should have, you know what I mean? Like he knows. And the best part is that he's humble enough. Our whole room is that they want to be pushed and they want to be coached. And so, I mean, heck, what else could you ask for? Right. Like, so I always ask, like, what do you need from me? Just keep making sure, like, you're pushing me. Don't let me settle. And so,
who wants to be a Buckeye, which says a lot about Max Clare. But then, like, in today's day and age, you bring in anybody from the portal, you got to think somebody's walking right out the door, let alone one of the better guys returning at that position. No one batted an eye. And I told him on the front end, and I'm not surprised at all. Like, the brotherhood in that unit is so freaking strong. And I told him the expectations to be the best unit in the country. I don't waver from that. It's Ohio State. It's not just QBU, wide receiver U. Like, it needs to be tight end U. And they know that expectation. So I'm going to sign the best in the country, portal guys, recruit guys, and everyone's on the same page there. So we're well aligned.
Was that part of the conversation? Like, hey, we weren't looking for someone to replace anybody in this room, but the best tight end in the country wanted to come here. We can't say no, or how does that work?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that easy. Like, we couldn't not say no. I mean, everyone else in the country wanted him as well. But the conversation, I went to Will and I went to Bennett, and I said, listen, I have not talked to him yet. With your permission, I will. And if he's a culture fit, that was my only promise. If he doesn't fit you guys, I'm not going to bring him in. But I think he has a skill set that might be complementary to you guys, and I think it might make the room better. And they were like, Coach, let's go get him.
How much does it help that everybody played last year that showed they could play? Like they know they'll play. They're worthy.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Like, we're going to play the best 11. Like, think about 2 years ago when I took it. Like, it was the Case Dover show. And then you go last year, we had 6 guys playing the playoffs. We have 13 personnel at Ohio State. We got 14 personnel at Ohio State. Like, that, people probably would not have believed that 2 years ago. So our guys know, like, the proof's in the pudding now. If you're one of the best 11, you're going to play. And listen, if you're not one of the best 11, but you're the top 20, we're gonna have a package. You know what I mean? So to your point, like they saw it last year, and now we got to expand on that now. Yeah, 16 personnel. I don't know if I have enough bodies, but I'm in.
We saw a little bit of him as well. People just thought of him as like a blocker when he brought him in, but saw him downfield and sort of stretch the field very good. Obviously, Max does what he does in the passing game. But what does Bennett need to do, maybe to show you that he can do those things? Because we haven't seen him do it.
Sure. I mean, I think he was the first tight end to score last year, right? And it was an 80-yard touchdown. So I mean, he showed us that. But no, if you want to play tight end here, you got to be a receiving threat and you got to be dominant in the blocking game. Period.
Going off what you were saying before, how would you define the culture that I guess you built in this tight end zone?
Well, each year's different, right? That's okay. Kind of had his own little thing going. Last year, we prided ourselves like we needed to be the baddest dudes on the field. Because I told them in the first meeting last year, I was like, we are the least talented unit on the team. Not just to insult them, but like we're not full of all these high profile names. We needed to be the bad boys, and we needed to kind of embrace that blue collar image. So that was last year's, and I think we did it. Just turn on the film from the playoffs. This year, who knows what it's going to be? I've seen what it was this past winter, and it was a bunch of dudes that are super hungry to be the hardest working unit on the team. But time's going to tell. I'm excited to see and it's on them to set the culture.
Yeah, is there a point like in the season or in like camp that you realize like what that culture is going to be like?
Yeah, I think when you come out of spring, you'll have an idea of sort of the direction we're heading in, and then throughout the summer, and then maybe fall camp. Like last year at fall camp, we all kind of looked around the room, and the leaders were like, if we block our tails off, like we got a shot. And then obviously we got to do our job in the pass game, but we got to do the dirty jobs, and they embraced that up until the last game of the season. This year's going to be different. Like we've already talked about it. It's not set in stone, but like the challenge this winter and this spring is that the tight ends need to set the tone. Like you look around the team, like we got so many veteran guys who have played. We've got to set the tone. Like it should come through the tight end room. The energy, the effort, the toughness, the physicality, the production should come through the tight end room. And that's what those guys are saying. So I bought into what they're, kind of pushing for. Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot, but I mean, Bennett's certainly been vocal. I mean, that was from the first day of winter training. He's been here for several years, and he's definitely been probably the most vocal of the tight ends right now.
What kind of leader? Because he's had an interesting, 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years now. Ohio State. How different is he as a leader, given like he had this taken away from him? Like, what do you see from him as a leader?
Yeah, I think to your point you just made, it's a great one. I think show me a great tight end. I bet you I'm going to show you a guy who has some scars. Like I don't know. It kind of make believe for like a tight end to come into college and it all clicks right away. Bennett's had ups and downs, and I think guys relate to that. Like this shit's going to be freaking hard, man. So especially those young guys, those new guys coming in, Bennett's kind of, that veteran figure. He's been through hell and back, and then we leaned on him down the stretch, and he's out here dominating dudes in the playoffs. So, I mean, he's a lead first guy, but he's been super vocal, and I've challenged him to take these new guys in the Maxes and the Nates and, show them the way.
What stands out about him as a coach to get this shot at quarterback?
Yeah, and I don't want to compliment him too much because he's one of my best friends, but Billy, right off the bat, his knowledge, he's one of the smartest football minds I've ever been around. Like, you got Coach Day, and then you got a couple other, and then like Billy's up, like right up there. Billy and I were roommates during COVID, sent my wife back to Cleveland, and we don't want to get anyone sick, and Billy and I roomed together. And like when that season got taken from us for a little bit, it was like football clinic every single day, 24 hours a day. And I was learning a whole lot more from him than he was from me. So, I mean, one is football mind, but also how he relates to these guys. Obviously, he's young and he played the position, but his ability to teach, he's off the charts. That was a home run hire, and super excited to work with him. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I absolutely love our offensive staff in the sense of, yeah, we're youthful, right? Like we could relate to the guys, and we got full of energy. Like you come to our practices, you guys see, like it starts with Coach Hart. He's out there running around like a madman, and we all got to follow suit. But also the continuity. Like I've been here going on damn near a decade, and my two bosses have been Ryan Day and Brian Hartline for 10 years. So like we know each other every day for whatever, 8 years. So that continuity, even you mentioned Billy Fesler, he was gone and came back. So yeah, we're young, but we've been together. Show me another staff that's been together for 8 years that knows each other that well, and that's, been this productive. I don't think there is one.
How much does it help you that you have experience, being in all these different position groups as you now take on that coach?
Yeah, I think a lot, right? I think I'm gonna try. I mean, my job again is to make sure that Coach Hartline's the best version of himself and make sure he's organized and has everything he needs. But to your point, like I've been in the run game, I've been in the pass game. So to be the guy to help maybe Tyler Bowen out a little bit. Hey, here's what we call that in the past, or bridge the gap between run and pass. That's what a tight end does, and that's what hopefully I could do for the offensive staff.
With Max Claire's skill set, I'm going to phrase this the wrong way. You guys have great slot receivers at Ohio State. You always do. Mecca was a stud. Could a tight end like that help fill in some of maybe what you lose with the Mecca, that physicality of the slot position? That he's a tight end, but pretty good pass catcher.
Yeah, I think so. I think we got several guys in the room that if we're in 12 personnel, that they could go line up in the slot, that they could line in line. I think that alone, the ability to do both is a mismatch for a defense, right? We tried out 2 or 3 different tight ends. Like, how do you get to treat that? Are we going to pack the box and run it? But if we could also spread it out and attack you through the air, I think that could be a mismatch, just like you said.
With Ray, Ryan, and Brian, I don't want to call it here. Do you think they like 12 personnel? What does a tight ends coach have to do to show, like, hey, we can do this whenever you want to do it? I promise you we have 2 guys who are ready to do it. Like, what's that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and just like you said, challenge, that's exactly what it is. Because really, I tell my guys, like, they don't have pride. Like, the best guys are going to play. It's not like Brian Hartline coaches receivers, so they're going to live in 10 personnel. That's not going to happen. If I know the guy like he's my brother. Like, if the 4 best are running backs, we're going to run the wing T or something. Like, he's a competitor, and he's going to put the best 11 on the field to win. And if that's 2 tight ends, hopefully 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, we're going to play with all of that. And that's why you come to Ohio State. We don't shy away from that at all. Both of those guys, Coach Hart and Coach Day, have NFL experience. Both of them have used 12 personnel in the past, and we're really looking forward to expand that role. But that's really on the tight ends. They got to use this spring opportunity to prove they're one of the best 11 or top 20 or whatever that is. Good. Anything else, guys? Sweet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Have a safe break, buddy.
Thanks, brother.
Keenan, congrats, man.
Thank you.
Who's in charge?
I don't know.
The guys will be here in a second. We are just finishing up. We're going to do the live Buckeye Weekly show here in a minute. Just wanted to keep everybody informed. We had to move cameras, get things going. Here comes Tony. Tom is already here. So,
sorry, everybody. I was just getting the lay of the land on how long we can be here.
How long can we be here?
As long as you want.
Wow.
But let's not go that long.
Well, spring showcase coming up in.
Kevin wants you to move over. Right. But you gave it.
I did this way the whole time.
Okay.
All right, we good? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
I was just thinking, man, it has been so long that I am legitimately happy to see some of the people who are in here, like not program affiliate people, but like media. I mean, like them too, but media people is like, oh, I haven't seen this person in a long time. It's been since Atlanta, or at least the Saturday after Atlanta, since the last time I saw some of these folks. So genuinely nice to be back inside and ready to talk some actual honest to goodness football.
There is a lot to talk about. I'm sure most of the people are watching the Ryan Day, and then the two tables there. Tom, I have no idea where to begin.
Yeah, well, what I thought was, for the people who are watching on the live stream, maybe we should start with some of the stuff that was not live streamed, because you were around. Were you at Matt Patricia?
I was with Matt Patricia and James Laurinaitis.
I saw Sue asking
who was being streamed.
So we did not have anyone on the first table. So like Matt Patricia was not.
Okay. And that was also
Keenan Bailey at the very end.
Keenan Bailey, Matt Guerreri.
Yeah. Okay. No, Matt Guerreri was. But anyway, let's start with Matt Patricia. I saw Sue asking about Patricia.
Okay.
What did Matt Patricia have to say?
Well, this is a guy who seems very, very happy to be in college, and he studied the game with Bill Belichick last year while they were doing their podcast, and just the playoff aspect excited him. It's becoming more and more familiar to the NFL, and so that kind of excited him. But looking at what they're going to do defensively, it's based on, what do you have? And that kind of went into one of the lines that James Laurinaitis said. He said, it's not what you do, it's what you've got. So I thought that was interesting. And so Matt Patricia, he's multiple, he'll do whatever it is, but the fact that he's coming into a staff where he's the only new guy. So this is the Ohio State defense. And then this spring is about evaluating players, looking at players, and then seeing this is not about scheme this spring. But interestingly, went over and asked James Laurinaitis about CJ Hicks, because that's one of the questions we have this spring. And he said the first person he thought of when Matt Patricia was hired was CJ Hicks. And so he expects him to be moving around. He was asked, will he be in your room? He's like, I don't know. We'll find out on Monday, first day of practice.
Moving around.
So that's what some of the defensive coaches are thinking with Matt Patricia. Like James Laurinaitis talked about just how excited he was that he is here. But yeah, it's one of the big questions about Patricia is the Detroit thing. And, I can try to find the exact quotes, but he basically said one of the problems he had was when you're with New England and they would win a Super Bowl, lose a Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. And when you lose the Super Bowl, all you can focus on is getting back to the Super Bowl. And you're just 100% tunnel vision. And so they lost the Super Bowl, and then he went to Detroit. And he tried to take that same tunnel vision. He's like, that was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
And so he acknowledged that. He said that there's been some reflection, and he realizes that he did not do things the right way in Detroit. And so, I think that takes some humility. But also you've been fired. So it's like, you're not, everybody knows, everybody saw. But I thought it was interesting how he explained one of the issues he had. He was just like, I was no longer with New England, but I kind of kept that same thing, and that was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, and when you think about it, that makes sense. If you're coming in as, let's say, Mike Soleni, who was the GA assistant offensive line coach last year, he's going to UNLV. He's now the offensive line coach at UNLV. You can't go to UNLV and give all the same, say all the same. You could say all the same words you said at Ohio State. And yeah, the jerseys are red and the helmets are gray, but it's not the same thing, right? So that makes a lot of sense that, the culture in New England in the early 2010s and the culture of the Detroit Lions about 1960 through 2023 or so are very, very different things. So that's interesting. That's an interesting thing to to say, and and it's very easy to sort of paint that as, and these losers didn't get it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that was a little bit more of a self-reflective thing rather than because there are ways to turn bad cultures into good cultures. That if you were familiar with the New England Patriots prior to the arrival of Tom Brady, or maybe even a few years earlier than that, they were like one of the most hopeless teams in the league for decades. Outside of, they played the Super Bowl 20, and it was like, can you believe the New England Patriots, who were famous for just like the snowplow game, and that was it before that, are in the Super Bowl? And it was kind of the same thing 10 years later. You can change that culture, but that's not a you come in day one and everything, you just flip on the light switch and it's like, oh, now it's bright in here and now everything's different.
Yeah, and Dan Campbell kind of able to do that because of his time as a player and knowing how like it works as a player and what they want to do. Certainly a player's coach, but he pushed them a lot. It's just different kinds of being pushed, and the way Patricia did it certainly didn't work. He also said he just loves the college environment. Like he said he wants his family to experience that. He's got a wife, he's got kids. He just wants them around the whole college environment around Ohio State. So I thought that was interesting, where you kind of get this like sentimental feel of college when you've been away, and he's been in the NFL for 20 years or whatever. He formerly worked with Tim Walton back at Syracuse back in the day. So me and Timmy, we go way back, like 25 years, that sort of thing. So he does have ties to college, but also it's very becoming more and more reminiscent with it, and he's excited about it. I wonder how excited he'll be when he has to recruit the same guys each year.
Yeah,
but you can't sign somebody to a real 3-year or 4-year deal, which is, that's the big advantage that the NFL has that college does not.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of the adjustment for him. It's a different game. Ryan Day talked about the fact that it's the NFL and college have sort of become more similar in some ways, because you've had sort of trickle up from college to and trickle down from the NFL, guys going back and forth. So it's becoming more similar, but it's not the same. I mean, that starts with the hash marks, which make a much bigger difference than I think most people realize. But the recruiting piece and all the other stuff, it is a very different thing. But the fact that he and Bill Belichick spent last year really looking at the college game, that's interesting to me. And that was something that had been out. That's not new information, say, but that was interesting to me when I first heard that. And it feels like this is maybe a little bit more intentional of a move than people might have thought. 2 longtime NFL guys to spend a year really looking at college, and then both to end up in college. There's a little bit more of a plan here. It wasn't just that the phone rang and Ryan Day was like, well, I grew up rooting for the Patriots, and this guy used to be on the Patriots, so let me give him a call. I think there was a little more thought to it on Day's end, a little more thought to it on Patricia's end. But to spend a year looking at it, we have seen the Nick Saban School for Wayward Boys kind of approach before to coach hiring, and that has generally worked out really well, where you go and your last head coaching job didn't end well, and so then you go and you spend some time working under Nick Saban, and you sort of rehab your image and rehab your reputation a little bit. And Nick Saban is not walking through that door. So now you have there are only 3 active college coaches with a national championship to their name, and it's Dabo Swinney, Kirby Smart, and Ryan Day. So this is an opportunity for Ryan Day to maybe follow that Nick Saban pathway. And Day talked about the fact that he had looked at that Nick Saban model before he made the Patricia hire.
Yeah, just as an aside, when Urban Meyer got here, the target was Nick Saban and Alabama. And now
there are two banners up there. There will probably, I'm guessing, be some new banners up there shortly, but there are 2 banners up there on the wall. One of them is the Sugar Bowl win over Alabama. One of them is the Sugar Bowl win over Clemson. Because at the time those went up in 2021, those were the two big bullies that Ohio State was going up against in the recruiting realm. So those were the games you wanted the recruits to come in here and look at and see.
So Ryan Day did say he was very thorough in the search, as you guys may have seen. Tom, I guess what you're saying is what didn't happen is, like, Ryan Day, if he knows where Matt Patricia, what city is, like, dials the operator. It's like, Patricia, Matt, can I get a number for that?
4-1, yes, 411. Still probably a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and then he 1-800-COLLECT, I believe, is
1-800
also.
collect. Hey, it's Ryan Day. Call me back. That's
So-
the yes.
Come pick me up. I'm at the skating rink.
These kids will remember.
Yeah, talking. Then you start talking about the personnel with Matt Patricia. And, it's still early, but he did say, like, it doesn't take you long to get here to seek out Caleb Downs, and then it doesn't take long before you see Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, or as James Laurinaitis calls him, Veli.
Belly. All right.
I don't know that we're allowed to do that.
Well, these are great because you pick up nicknames. Because Brian Hartline called Brandon as BI. I'm like, all right,
There you
well,
go.
let's add that one to the repertoire.
So, but like for a guy like Matt Patricia, who we've talked about this before, where the New England thing is you find what can guys do and then put them in those positions. Because he said the reason that all evolved was because at New England, they had a system, they had a scheme, they had 3-4. But when you keep drafting at the bottom of the draft, they started drafting the best available players and then find out what they, give them what they drafted them to do, you have them do. So it becomes more like compartmentalized, but also more versatile. Like, you do this thing, and that's that's what your plan is. And like their linebackers would change every couple of years, and they'd change what they did with those linebackers. But when you look at Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, are two big, long guys, there's a lot that you can do. And as we already said like 5 minutes ago, the CJ Hicks thing, there's a lot you can do there. So you can just tell, like, this is, you said, like, the brain starts going
the wheels are turning
once you
already,
start seeing these guys, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you got to remember, they haven't seen them on the field in any kind of meaningful way yet. So, spring ball, when spring ball starts, that is on March 17th, a couple Mondays from now, that's when that process will really start. But obviously, I'm going to guess they have watched, Matt Patricia in particular has watched a ton of film to sort of get up to speed with some of these guys. And, these are, there are only a handful of guys on that defense who have played any kind of meaningful snaps, like started role kind of snaps. So these are, there's a lot of new and exciting to this for these guys.
So who did you talk to off camera or off live stream?
Off live stream, I talked to Carlos Lachlan quite a bit. Let me circle back to Tim Walton real quick.
Okay.
So we stay on defense. Tim Walton, he was on, I think, the live stream for some of it, but I got a chance to talk to. It was Matt Patricia and it was Tyler Bowen, the two new guys, and then it was Tim Walton. So I had Tim Walton all to myself for 5 minutes or so. Got a chance to ask him about some of the younger guys, Bryce West, Aaron Scott, those guys. I mean, he talked about the fact there's a real opportunity for those guys out there this spring, especially because Davis and Igbenogson is not going to be practicing a whole heck of a lot this spring, especially early. Like there could be a ton of reps for those younger guys out there. And, that's a real opportunity for those young guys because we just did a show about this just a few days ago. Those guys are people who you saw enough from in their freshman year that it was kind of like, okay, well, you're sort of on track for something bigger. And this is the spring where you really have an opportunity to capitalize on that and make the most of those reps. He talked about Patricia and the fact that, I asked him about, Patricia being a front end guy and Walton sort of being a back end guy in terms of defense and how they work together. Because that's sort of the plan is you have Walton sort of focusing on the back end of the defense and Patricia sort of on the front end of the defense because that's sort of where their expertise is. And Walton said, listen, we've both also coordinated full defenses before, so it's not, this is not just it's not just I only know this thing and he only knows this thing, but putting those two pieces together, if you have a guy who's 80% secondary and back end, and you've got a guy who's 80% sort of front end, you can sort of
that's 160%.
That is 160% of a defense. So yeah, that's
pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty mathematically impossible, but also pretty good. Walton seems like legitimately excited to just in his new role and having worked with Patricia before. He said he knew when he heard that when that name sort of came up, it was kind of like it was not like who's this? It's like you know who that is. He's worked with him before.
Let me Google this guy.
Yeah, sounded very excited to talk to him. Now on to Carlos Lachlan.
Well, let's stay with the defense. Because I talked to James Laurinaitis, and he again, as I said, very excited about the hire. But he was talking about Arvell Reese and what the next step is for him. And basically it's just preparation, habits, and leadership, and with all of these things that he's showing, and the consistency of being the middle linebacker for the team. And I asked, with Sonny not needing as many reps this spring, he's like, well, don't tell Sonny that. Don't let Sonny know.
Mm-hmm.
But this is going to be a huge opportunity for all of these young guys to get more reps and to create to make it known that they want to play. He also talked about how he wants something that Malcolm Jenkins told the team last year. Like, everybody in here should want to be the leader of their class. So that's what he's telling his linebackers as well. Like, for Garrett Stover and Peyton Pierce, be the leader of the second-year guys. For Arvell Reese, be the leader of the juniors. Certainly Sonny, be the leader of the seniors. So, he's hoping that this is also just a fresh start for CJ Hicks, which I think clearly it will be. And now it's just up to him to do something with it.
Yeah, and he has felt a little bit miscast for a couple of years now, and that's something we've talked about a bunch, that it's like, well, maybe he fits there, but maybe he fits close to the line of scrimmage. I know that's something Mark Gibler's been talking about since basically day one that he stepped on campus. And same thing with Sonny Styles.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of opportunity has not necessarily presented itself yet, and now it's here, and now you have a real opportunity, because it's a fresh start, not just because you've got all these available snaps and all these available reps, but also because you got a new defensive coordinator who specializes in the front end. And so this is, he doesn't have any kind of preconceived notions. It's like, let's see what it looks like on the field. And it sounds like they're going to be trying a bunch of different stuff this spring. They're going to be, Ryan Day talked about the fact that the biggest piece of spring ball is individual improvement, getting individual guys better. But they're also, they got to figure out what they've got. And there's a lot of new faces in terms of starters. There's, a new defensive coordinator who's going to, sort of form his own impressions of these guys. And that's a real opportunity for guys to go ahead. You have someone who's looking to form a first impression of you. This is a real opportunity for you to make that a positive.
Yeah, and then also it's, as Laurinaitis said, this is where the lab work. Like, the coaches can get in the lab and start messing around, and what can they do with the different players. Tom, do you want to talk anything about the offense?
Well, did you talk to Matt Guerreri at all?
I did not.
Okay. So then let's move on to the offense. I'll start with Carlos Loughlin, just because we've said his name 1,000 times already. He said he was asked, do you consider yourself an elite recruiter? He said he's not an elite recruiter, he's an elite relationship builder. He said you're not selling cars here. You're not trying to just like trick someone into coming. You're trying to,
pull the string off the stick.
First, we got to talk about NIL. Then we got to talk about the undercoding. No, it is a relationship building thing. And he talked about the fact that multiple guys, Turbo Rogers, he had a relationship since 7th grade with Turbo Rogers. Like, he had started talking to him then. James Peoples, I think James Peoples was, he talked to him since 10th grade. These are not like new. When Carlos Loughlin was new to Ohio State, Carlos Loughlin was not new to James Peoples or Turbo Rogers or some of these other guys, because that's what he has made a really big point of emphasis about.
He wasn't even new to C.J. Donaldson.
No. Sam Williams-Dixon, he did the Bryson Rogers leaving the portal, come back in the portal thing, and Carlos Loughlin said when he talked to Sam Williams-Dixon and his parents, he talked to him about not about football at all. It was about, you're from here, the value of an Ohio State degree if you are from here and you're long term, and the football piece of it, I'm sure, like, there's an opportunity there. He talked about needing to, wanting to find a pair and a spare. He called it a Jim Tressellism. I think that would predate Jim Tressel. That would have been a Woody thing. But finding your pair and a spare there, finding your guys there. He is very high on James Peoples. Talked about the fact that James Peoples is leading that room already. Being that second-year guy leading the room. There you go, James Peoples doing that.
What's frustrating, Tom, is like I've already just recently written about CJ Hicks. There's a story there. I've already just recently written like a couple times about James Peoples, and there's more to write because there's more to tell.
Well, I can tell you, Tony, that there are still 176 days until the Texas game, so there will be plenty of time to do that. That's not this show's problem. That's a different show. Sam Williams, he talked about James Peoples, said it's a microwave society, and everything is immediate gratification. And, guys come in and they're like, well, my recruiting ranking says I'm really good, so I should play in my first year and be off to the NFL after 3 years. He goes, that's not how it works in my room. So, he said, you got to appreciate the climb. And James Peoples leading that room now. I think James Peoples is probably going to lead that room in carries this year as well. Just, and he also talked about the fact, he said James Peoples thinks he's 6 foot tall, and he said more like 5'10". Said running backs play on special teams. Like that is a non-negotiable. Running backs play on special teams, and that does not mean like, oh, you're out there. But he said the expectation is you are 1 or 2 on the depth chart. If you are a running back, you are going to play special teams. And I go back to like the video of Ezekiel Elliott blowing up the Purdue guy on kick return. Like I can't imagine that's a very difficult sell at Ohio State, where it's like that's sort of been the culture.
And they show
going
that
way back. Yeah, that's something that you hear about them showing periodically.
Terry McLaurin too.
Yep. And Bo Jackson talked about Bo Jackson. Just he talks about Bo Jackson. Like he's excited. He talked about Isaiah West in a very positive way. Talked about Turbo Rogers, who's not here yet, but just sort of that background with him. Bo Jackson. I don't want to read too much into it, but he talked about just gifts from God that Bo Jackson has. And, you can tell he is very excited about Bo Jackson. So, I don't want to put together a, ranking of which true freshman is going to be where. But, boy, the tone in his voice when he talked about Bo Jackson was real excitement.
We should do a show next week would be like post interviews, hype train rankings.
Mm-hmm.
I think we did something similar last year where it's like these are the freshman rankings right now based on
Jeremiah Smith 1.
Yes.
Jeremiah Smith 2. 3. Jeremiah Smith
4. Also JJ
Jeremiah
Smith.
Yes. Other than that, that was kind of the big stuff from Carlos Laughlin. Tony, we love a good roommate story. On
Yes,
this,
of course,
on
absolutely.
This show. Historically, I go back to the Dwayne Haskins, Austin Mack roommate story. Obviously, it goes further back than that. People have had college roommates for a long time, decades, in fact.
Can confirm.
2 of the coaches on this year's staff were roommates during COVID. Would you like to guess who they were?
They were I can give you 2 that were. Then Billy Fesler and Keenan Bailey were.
They were, yes. Okay, so yes, I got that from Keenan Bailey.
Yeah, we were. I think we were over there maybe at the same time.
Well,
go ahead because it's an interesting. It's a good story.
No, you've ruined it. No,
basically.
No, Keenan Bailey said, COVID starts, the world shuts down, football shuts down. Keenan Bailey sent his wife back to Cleveland to just sort of like, well, I'm going to be around people. You should be somewhere else. And he said all day, every day, it was the 2 of them just doing basically football clinics to each other, like in the you're just watching film, talking about football, watching football, thinking about football. Said he learned a lot more from Billy Fesler than he probably gave Billy Fesler. But he talked about Billy Fesler just in terms of just what an incredible football mind, and it didn't. Ryan Day talking about Billy Fesler, it didn't sound like that was much of a like, well, we're going to have to conduct a national search. It was like, we've got our guy. He's fantastic. He was probably, way, like had way outstripped his position and job title and salary last year in terms of what he was contributing to the program. So that sounds like that was a very easy move.
Well, and I asked Billy Fesler, like, so when Chip Kelly leaves, are you expecting the job? And he's like, you can't expect it. Then I was like, well, when it was offered, how long did it take you? 0 seconds. It took me 0 seconds to accept the job. And you think of this guy. So he was a graduate assistant at Ohio State 2020 and 2021. Before that, spent time with Joe Moorhead. So this guy's career, Joe Moorhead, Ryan Day, Chip Kelly. Like, it does not get any better than that in terms of college offensive upbringing for a quarterbacks coach, because all 3 of those guys are fantastic college offensive minds.
Now, when was he at Penn State? He played at Penn State.
He played at Penn State in maybe like a decade ago or so as a walk-on.
Yes, but I was wondering if we were going to get to lump Jay Paterno in with that.
No, I don't believe so.
For more than one reason?
No, because that would have had to have been like 2010, 2011. So he's a pretty young guy.
Okay.
As is everybody, as you look at their Wikipedia page, and you're like, is Tyler Bowen 35? You're like, putting your glasses down.
Okay, everyone brace yourself. Ready? Tyler Bowen, Ohio State's new offensive line coach, was born in 1989. Like a lot of these guys, like Keenan Bailey, was in college in like 2015. Like a lot of these guys, you kind of know, like, yeah, these guys are young. Tyler Bowen, that was one where I was like, had my hands on my knees, like, I need a minute. 1989, Tony. We may, in fact, be getting old.
So, and then got to talk to Billy Fesler for quite a while. And clearly, like, one of the things that we had talked about is Ryan Day. He knows how Ryan Day wants his quarterbacks to be coached, and he's done that. And boy, he's like really, really excited to be here. As who wouldn't be as a quarterbacks coach? He's like, there are like a handful of like elite level premier jobs. Quarterbacks coach at Ohio State is one of them. Kind of like Brian Hartline's like, where else on the ladder is there to go? I coach wide receivers at Ohio State. Like, it's harder to get better than that. And that's the way Billy Fesler feels about quarterbacks and the ability in recruiting to relate to these guys. They always talk about that. So that's my thought. I did not get to talk to Tyler Bowen at all.
Neither did I.
But when Ryan Day talks about how much like he is going to help the recruiting, like there's no doubt. I think really, really good or something to that effect is what Ryan Day said. So that's fascinating to me. I do want to. I know we're jumping around, but the last guy that I don't think was streamed. Did you stream Keenan Bailey at the end?
I streamed like the last half of Keenan Bailey.
Okay,
so people got a little bit of him. The Max Clare thing.
Yes, right.
Go ahead and.
Because one of the things is, you're bringing in, before you bring in somebody like Max Clare, you check with your room, and he asked Bennett Christian and Will Kazmarek, and he's like, what do you think? Because if you don't want this, I won't do it. And if he's not a fit, I'm not going to do it. In terms of bringing in Max Clare, and even to visit, that sort of thing. And so, no, they're all good with it. If it makes the room better, fantastic. And so, they brought him in, everything worked out. And, then I asked him, is the reason you didn't lose anybody? Because they all played last year. It's like, that's a big factor, but also they're all just very, very close. And he talked about how Jelani Thurman has blossomed over the offseason as well, because that's a guy that his playing time diminished as the season went on. So you could see, like, there have been players who, when playing time diminishes, they diminish in terms of their presence and their desire to do anything. That's not been the experience there. So again, they're loaded at tight end this year.
They're loaded at tight end, and Keenan Bailey talked about the fact that the expectation is this is Ohio State. This should not just be wide receiver unit. This should be tight end unit. This should be the best unit in the country in terms of tight ends. That's the expectation. The guys know that. Having really talented players in that room, and a lot of really talented players in that room, coupled with they're using 13 personnel, they're using 14 personnel, they're playing 4 tight ends in the college football playoffs. They're playing 4 tight ends in the national championship.
And real tight ends, not offensive linemen or defensive linemen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you've got 6 guys in the depth chart, but 4 of them are playing in the national championship game. That tells you if you live up to your piece of the piece of the equation, if you are meeting the expectation, and the expectation's high, but you're recruiting talented players. Max Clare is the number 1 tight end in the portal, like with a bullet this year, not even a question. You're bringing back Will Kazmarek, who was a really, really good, really big contributor who, when he was missing last year, you noticed it. Jelani Thurman is an athletic freak and has not been, a 50 snap a game guy yet. And this is his 3rd year. Bennett Christian in his 4th year. These are all guys who are good enough to play in a national championship game. So the opportunity's there, and that seems like that sort of sets you up for, man, you're really going to get pushed every day, but there is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, and also for Max Clare to come here knowing Keenan Bailey telling him, like, nobody's leaving. Everybody's coming back, and they're all playing. So just know that. And Max Clare's like, yeah, whatever, that's fine.
Do you think Max Clare coming to Ohio State from a 1-11 Purdue team that only beat, I think, Indiana State last year? Do you think that's like the opposite of the Matt Patricia speech to the Detroit Lions? Like, have to explain the culture a little slowly?
Yeah. Plus, I think Max Clare also knows that 2025, Tom, it's the year of the tight end.
I have heard that. That is a thing. We should talk a little bit about spring ball and what the expectation is for spring ball. Ryan Day talked about the spring showcase. He said spring game, and he's like, showcase.
Spring game, okay.
Yes, and he said they're going to do fewer padded practices this spring, treat more days as helmeted practices, like almost like an OTA style approach, which like an NFL kind of approach, which Day has coached in the NFL. Brian Hartline obviously played for a long time in the NFL. Tim Walton, Matt Patricia. Like, these are guys who sort of know what that model looks like. And with the schedule being what it is, and with as long as the season now stretches, you're now playing an NFL length season if you get far enough in the college football playoff. So you're sort of adjusting to that a little bit. But the spring game, it sounds like it will be some kind of a spring game. There's going to be a scrimmage element to that because they know what is on deck. They know who after that spring game, spring showcase, they know the next time they're going to be playing football in front of fans inside Ohio Stadium, the Texas Longhorns are going to be on the other sideline. So you don't have an Akron this year to sort of ramp yourself up or sort of get started slowly. You're getting thrown into the deep end of the pool right away. And Ryan Day said, the veteran guys the veteran guys are fine. Like Caleb Downs knows what it's like to play against Texas, and you're not worried about that and playing in front of this full stadium and all that kind of stuff. The younger guys, this is a big spring for the younger guys. They're going to let, it sounds like the older, more experienced guys, returning starter kind of types, Davis Igbenos and Caleb Downs, those kinds of guys are not necessarily going to get nearly as many reps as they would in a typical spring, but they're cognizant of the fact that you got to get these guys ready. You got to, but I think it sounds like it's going to be a lot of young guys, especially at the start of the spring.
Well, I think Ryan Day also realizes that you better have spring game mentioned, or else all of the people that you want there to give the young players the experience of playing in Ohio Stadium in front of a crowd. Like if you just say spring showcase, what is it? I don't know. Yeah. Ticket sales start to, I don't know if $20 and a service fee for what is a showcase? So there will be some scrimmaging there. And again, you've got quarterbacks that need work. You've got receivers that need work. And I don't know how much longer we're going to go, but I do want to talk about the quarterbacks.
We need to talk about the quarterbacks.
Because I did ask Ryan Day, what do what's the repetitions like? Is it going to be 40, 40, 40, 40, 20, which is what I said. He's like, no, we're just going to roll them. So it's going to be 33 time, and then
33.
That's right.
Well, 33 and a third.
So who's going to get that third? That's who the starter is.
33 and a third for each.
Okay.
And it's a 3 repeating. So, I mean, it's
the walk-on gets the 3 repeating.
Maybe. We'll see.
Every 100th snap.
Every 100th snap, yeah. He did talk about, I think it was Day, he talked about Tavian St. Clair and how, maybe it was Brian Hartline, how Tavian St. Clair had been a lot.
I think it was Billy Fesler.
A lot of people talk today, Tony. My brain is swimming with the amount of football stuff we just got fire hosed. Tony, it was like drinking through a fire hose.
It was.
First time anyone said that phrase in this room. Tavian St. Clair was in meetings like all last spring. Like, I don't think he missed a meeting, I think they said. Tavian St. Clair was in the college football playoff. Like, he was as part of that team in terms of preparing for the college football playoff. That sounds like that was an enormous head start for him. And this is one of these things we've talked about on one of these shows at some point in the last month or two. Being a local guy, being able to come to Ohio State virtually every week during the season for games, but also being able to come down for practices, being able to be in meetings, all that kind of stuff. That is an enormous head start because there's so much of being a quarterback. Like Tavian St. Clair, he's a big dude. He's got a strong arm. Like, the arm talent's there. You don't worry about that. There's a lot of, how often do we hear guys talk about the first year, everything was just kind of a blur, and the second year, once you actually understand the offense, things slow down. It feels like Tavian St. Clair has already been through one of the springs. He's been through, this is really kind of not his first spring as an Ohio State quarterback, which is an enormous head start over what you would typically think.
He's a true freshman, but he's more than a true freshman. He's not quite a redshirt freshman. It's like his red shirt was thrown in the wash with his white shirts. He's come out as like a pink shirt, maybe pink shirt freshman. We'll workshop that.
Well, and we're talking about Tavian St. Clair because that's where my brain went. But we need to talk about Julian Sayin, and we need to talk about Lincoln Keenholz, because those are the guys who, my expectation would certainly be that those are the two guys who are really fighting for the quarterback job, and Tavian St. Clair is probably ahead of where a true freshman is, but think about where true freshman quarterbacks have been in the past for Ohio State, and it's like you're probably not ready to win 11 games as a true freshman starting quarterback, and that's okay. That shouldn't be the expectation. Julian Sayin, it sounds like he is sort of trying to embrace that role. They talked about the fact that it's leadership and something else in terms of what they're looking for out of quarterback. Leadership and toughness in terms of what they're looking for out of quarterbacks. And he said they're starting to work with guys like Julian Sayin and Lincoln Keenholz in terms of like building those reps as a leader and getting up and talking in front of the crowd and in front of the team. And he said, like, sometimes it's going to be a little clunky at first. Like that's a muscle you have to build, just like you have to spend time in the weight room and you have to build those practice reps. You need reps in terms of leadership as well, and that's something that they're starting to build with him right now, and with Lincoln Kienholz as well. But those are that this is all they like. Everyone wants to hear about, like, oh well, who's completing, who's thrown the most touchdown passes to Jeremiah Smith in workouts. Like that's not what they're talking about. That's not what they're thinking about right now. This is like all the big picture stuff. It's all the crap that Will Howard did last year that no one really talked about. But it's like now Will Howard's gone, and now James Peoples is the old head in the running backs room, and Julian Sayin and Lincoln Kienholz are the veterans in the quarterback room.
Yeah, I mean, Bennett Christian is the leader of the tight ends, and he's played for 1 year. This is his fourth year, but he's really only played for 1 year. But and James Laurinaitis talked about the leadership. Like he's over the years, you've seen fake rah-rah, and you can't have that at middle linebacker. You can't have that at quarterback. And talking to Billy Fesler about that, he's like, well, the thing you need to understand about Julian Sayin is he was a freshman last year who knew his place. You can't walk in as a freshman and start being like, boom, 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 like, hey, Simon, I need you over here. Hey, Fryer, what do you that was terrible. Like, you call that a pass set?
Sayin doesn't say. Simon says.
There you go. Boom. And so now you're seeing more of that because it's required. It's not required. They are leaders now because they are the quarterbacks. And this is not the first year these guys have been quarterbacks. So most college quarterbacks have been quarterbacks since they're about 6 years old because that's what their dad wanted them to be, but they've been leading a team. So eventually when I am vying for this role, I'm going to be leading the team because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. And it comes out naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. And, these are guys who have generally led big programs. Lincoln Kienholz wasn't leading a big program by South Dakota standards. Julian Sayin was leading a big program by California standards. I mean, these are guys who, playing in front of 5,000 people is not going to freak anyone out. These are guys who've had to do it on a big stage. The stage is getting bigger now, obviously, but these are guys who have done it before.
Should we answer questions? Do we have
really one of the biggest questions we had is the batteries at 24%.
Nobody cares.
Terry asking, what are y'all's first impressions of the new coaches?
First impressions. Well, here's the problem with that. As Tom said at the outset, they put Matt Patricia at one table and then Tyler Bowen at the other table. So I didn't get any impression of Tyler Bowen because I was with Matt Patricia. I wanted to talk to both of them, but I had to stay with Patricia just because it's defensive coordinator.
I had a one-on-one with Tim Walton basically for 5 minutes because I was over there.
But the thing is, like, everybody raves about Tyler Bowen as a recruiter. So I assure you, he can schmooze the media.
Yeah, and for people who want to see these, obviously we sort of bounced around to give you a little bit of a taste of as many guys as we could during those interviews. We're going to have all of those interviews in their entirety up on the YouTube channel this afternoon. So you'll be able to get your own impressions of those guys.
But in terms of Matt Patricia, it's like, this was not Detroit Lions. Matt Patricia, like, he was cordial, friendly, getting names. There's no way he's going to remember everybody's name.
Yeah.
But he was into it.
I think back to a year ago what did you hear about Chip Kelly at UCLA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Chip Kelly was a curmudgeon. Chip Kelly didn't have time for anyone's crap. Chip Kelly was a grump. Chip Kelly was sick of your crap. And then Chip Kelly came in and Chip Kelly was perfectly happy here. Like, I think when Chip Kelly probably last year would have loved to have been an NFL offensive coordinator. Because if being Ohio State's offensive coordinator was really, truly his first choice, Bill O'Brien would not have stepped foot in this building. So I think Chip Kelly was probably hoping to be an NFL offensive coordinator last year. But when he came to, when that didn't work out and he came to Ohio State, well, he was pretty excited to be here. I think he looked around and went like, I can work with it. We're not in UCLA. We're not in Westwood anymore. You have Jeremiah Smith does not play for UCLA. Like, and I think Matt Patricia has to be walking in here and kind of having that same, he wanted to be in college very clearly. I mean, would he prefer to be in the NFL? I don't know, maybe. But based on what he did last year, very clearly he had college was part of his plan. Now he's here, and you have to be kind of excited to look around the room and go like, all right, this is not the NFL where all the teams are like this far apart. The number of teams that have a Sonny Styles or a Caleb Downs or, whatever, Kenyatta Jackson or Arvell Reese or whatever, whichever guy you want to kind of pick, that is a vanishingly small percentage of the 134 FBS teams.
Yeah, Matt Patricia looks at this room. He says, I've got Caleb Downs for 2 more years.
Well, let's sit down. We're going to talk about the hash marks and we're going to talk about the eligibility rules.
Oh, darn it. Kevin.
Yeah, Robert Howard agrees. Chip was great and very engaging with the media.
Yeah, you're right though, Tom. It was like Chip Kelly when he got here. You're expecting him to. This is going to be his own personal Festivus.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of problems with you people. Yeah. Now you're going to hear about it.
Perhaps you remember my time at Oregon.
Although I will blow the wind out of your sails here, Tom. Some members of the Ohio State beat did run into Chip Kelly at the combine, and I don't know that he recognized any of them.
Oh well.
So
he was. I wasn't there, so.
Chip. But again, you say he didn't want to be here at Ohio State. He gets here, and it turns into a $6 million a year contract. Right. So
I don't. It's not.
Right. I know what you're saying.
With our language, it wasn't that he didn't want to be here. This was not Plan A last year, and I think if we want to have a real honest moment, I think we've had this conversation before. If we want to have a real honest moment, this was not Plan A last year.
Worked out.
It worked out just fine. It would be hard. You'd be hard pressed to come up with a way that last year would have worked out better.
That's really just a great metaphor for life. It's never going to work out, but sometimes it does if you're lucky and your first choice is doesn't work out, and it's like, well, I'll fall back on this, and boom, $6 million.
It helps if you're from New Hampshire, but that doesn't work for everyone. Kevin.
Yeah, I lived in New Hampshire for 2 years. Where's my $6 million deal?
That's the joke.
We got any questions? Okay. All right. We should probably cut it. I've got to go work. There's a lot of football stuff that we just.
Yeah.
It's all downloading. Got to upload it and spit it out. But I do want to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it. Spring is 10 days away. Spring football starting 10 days away. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like for us, but we'll be here. So go ahead and hit the bell to be notified because we're going to be going live. We're going to be dropping videos, as you guys know. And, of course, find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com where we're talking about all of this, everything we're hearing behind the scenes and things like that. You can find at the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you later.